Good morning. We have a public hearing this morning to deal with, Tyra, do you want to give us the details on our public hearing?
Yeah, public notice has been given that a public hearing will be held at this time in these chambers to hear from anyone who feels their interest may be affected by council's consideration of a temporary use permit to the east of the Lakota Agriplex for a temporary cattle holding area at that location.
Thank you. So do we have anyone that would like to speak to the issue and provide a update to council or information to council? Tyra?
Just wanting to point out that we did receive in advance one email from the management at the Encana Event Center regarding the proposed use.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else? Councilor Wilburn?
Regards to that letter, I'm just wondering, like, within that lease that this issue is being addressed, or is this a concern that we should be looking at through you to staff regarding runaway cattle?
Or horses.
Or horses. So they have the pen, I'm just wondering, is that part of the lease agreement with them, that they're putting something in place to take care of this issue?
Jim?
Yeah, through your worship, there's no fencing between the pen and the riding arena. Currently, horses who are temporarily stabled outside of the building are basically led or herded into the riding arena, and that would be the case for the cattle. There's no proposal from the proponents to have fencing all the way across. And if there was fencing all the way across, it would remove the through traffic area that runs behind the center. In terms of how real a concern is, I have no idea. I don't herd cattle for a living, and I don't know how difficult they are to herd.
Can I speak to this?
Thank you. Sure.
I'm Mac Lees, and I'm the president of the Miles Zero Roving Club. And as far as cattle getting loose, it's very highly unlikely. We're having 30-foot self-freestanding panels constructed, and they're 5.5 feet high. And we won't be herding any cattle. We will be hauling them from the pen across to the Lakota Center. There's virtually no chance of getting loose.
Thank you. Any further comments, discussion? Anything else anybody wants to offer, or that's all we need? Thank you, everyone. Shall we
Adjourn.
have a motion to adjourn, please? Wilbur, Councillor Kenny, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. So at this time, I'd like to call our regular meeting of council to order. First item on our agenda, item 2, any new councillor business. Item 2.1, Councillor Carswell.
Yeah, before I forget, related to the Miles Zero Park, we do need to appoint someone to replace Marilyn Howard, who resigned because of health reasons. So that's a city appointment. So something you may want to diarise as requiring some action.
Thank you.
You have a sort of imposed Dealey Bobby photograph, whatever you want to call it, of the Miles Zero Park design, the Miles Zero sign, transported and inserted into a location into the Miles Zero Park. This was on the agenda at the last Miles Zero Park Society meeting as a proposal to replace the existing signage, which needs replacing. And I thought it prudent to bring this to council to see if there were any concerns about replicating the Miles Zero sign and having a sign with some different information on it, of course, at the Miles Zero Park. And if there was any, through staff, any technical issues as copyright and whether something needed to have some formal approval of council. So I'm just really, before the Mile Zero Park Society gets too, involved in this particular thing, what is the feeling of council, and are there some issues that I am not aware of that need to be addressed to bring this about? At the present time, they're looking at one at the main entrance, but there could be, there's some need for a second perhaps on the Hart Highway entrance that goes sort of on that road between Rotary Lake and the Mile Zero village. So, I need to get some sense of council's views on this matter.
Councillor Wilbur, Councillor Malkinson.
I like it, but I do have concern that our Mile Zero post is what draws people downtown. And I do see this as something that can be incorporated into the background of signage at the park. So it could be something that's shadowed into the back of a sign. But I do have concerns that somebody may come in and see, oh, there's a Mile Zero post, and maybe not have been here before and not realize that it is actually downtown. So I'm a little concerned that that draws away from our attraction downtown, and our downtown is having some pains right now, so I don't want to take away from what we have existing. So that's a concern I have. I do see this as something that can be incorporated in their signage, but maybe in a different way.
Thank you. Councillor Malkinson.
Good. I appreciate Councillor Wilbur's thoughts, Your Worship. Good morning, by the way. It's nice to see you. I suppose that my initial reaction was, I suppose, about the size of the Mile Zero post. You know, having one much bigger than the one that we have downtown. One wouldn't. Well, I guess the bigger it is, the more realistic and the more. Well, maybe somebody will assume that it is the real one. Just on the same lines, along the same lines as Shaylee's concerns. It's just my thoughts.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I would just say ditto, like, that would be my concern also. Just, we want them to come downtown, we want them to visit the Alaska Highway House and take a little trip over to Bill's News or whatever, right? And it, people who don't know our community may think that that is the Mile Zero.
So Jim and then Councillor Kenny.
Through your worship, so council has, through their tourism arm, Tourism Dawson Creek, over the years has literally spent millions of dollars branding our existing Mile Zero post, exactly as the single destination that tourists need to stop and get their picture taken, and it is to facilitate downtown business. You've trademarked the Mile Zero post. You don't permit replicas anywhere. You've had many requests from, say, hotels wishing to have replica Mile Zero posts. This is clearly a replica Mile Zero post. If you're contemplating doing this, I think you should reach out to the Chamber for an opinion, to Tourism Dawson Creek for an opinion. I think you should do a public process, because when you advocated moving the Mile Zero post 50 feet for the Spirit Square, you had around 1,000 residents telling you that that was a very bad idea. So I don't think this is something you should, frankly, I don't think you should approve it generally, because why did we spend all that money and why did we trademark the Mile Zero post? But if you're going to do it, you should reach out and do a pretty extensive public consultation.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny.
I really like where they're going with this, as far as, depicting, Dawson Creek and the Mile Zero. Like, I really like where they're going with it. But I agree, that's the first thing I thought too. Oh my God, we can't have another one. Like, it would hurt the downtown. But if they could go along that same theme, I'm thinking the Mile Zero Society, like, not put the post, but something related to the Alaska Highway other than the highway post. All the other, tourist destination places, they have different elements of what they're selling throughout their communities. And so if we could pick something, or if they could pick something other than the post itself. I think, I love where they're going with this, rather than just putting a sign, saying, here we are at Milesville Park.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann. Thank you. Schumann.
So I wonder if it would be appropriate to make a motion that we actually aren't in favor of replicating the Mile Zero post at the Mile Zero Park and sending that off to the society.
It's up to you.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Malkinson, were you seconding that?
I just wanted to maybe tag on a little bit.
Well, we
Just-
need a seconder first before we're going to tag on.
Sure, sure.
Councillor McFadden,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Good morning.
Morning.
Councillor
How are you?
Malkinson?
Well, I'm all in favor of us having response to the Mile Zero Park's request, but maybe if we included some sort of idea of what we think would be appropriate in that area, perhaps us encouraging them to, welcoming them to have the Mile Zero post on a sign or something like that, on a regular size sign. It's rather than us just disagreeing with their concept outright. Why don't we identify something that we find is acceptable in that
Yeah.
area?
So we have a motion
Mhm.
that says we're not
No.
we're not going to do that. So I was assuming. So are you speaking against the motion then?
I'm not speaking against it. No, I think it's good, but I think we ought to include what we think would be acceptable in that area, and I believe maybe Councillor Schumann has something to say along those
Okay.
lines.
Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, I don't know that we have to tell them what we want their sign to be. We just need to tell them we want their sign not
Try
to be the
again.
Mile Zero post.
Yeah, okay.
Because we have our Mile Zero post downtown, and they need to just come up with something different
Sure.
that isn't our Mile Zero post. I don't want to be telling them what kind of sign to put up.
All right.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
Just that, I think as far as signage goes, their options are endless, but I don't agree with replicating the Mile Zero post.
Thank you. Any further discussions or comments? Councillor Parslow?
I'm just amazed that my instinct was right.
Oh, we should never second guess ourselves. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you,
Just
Councillor
further
Parslow.
to the Mile Zero part, the directors there have been working, reviewed the matter that's before council today relating to the lease agreement between the city and the Mile Zero Park Society. And we have, the people who've been leading this have reached a collaborative decision over the proposed lease agreement between the Historical Society and the Mile Zero Park Society. So we will be, in the next few weeks, when I return from my little trip, be communicating that to those who have not been involved, and hoping that we can get that navigated. And finally, contrary to what I've been told are industry trends, the revenue received at the RV component part of the Mile Zero Park Society's operations there is about 15% up over budget. So that's going to help the Mile Zero Park Society with some costs that will be incurred if the Bay Tree Community Hall is relocated to the Mile Zero Park, and with the proposed new service station and improvements to the showers, washrooms at the RV park. So application is being made through NDIT, and the Mile Zero Park Society has its core funding for that, those three projects. So things are moving along quite well, but the increased revenue certainly is helping.
Good deal. Thank you. Next item, item 2.2 is Councillor Malkinson is bringing forward in regards to the sure water process.
Good. Hello again. Yes, for well, this morning I included this attachment for council's consideration, and perhaps I can elaborate on it a little bit more, maybe give some more background before I read out the resolution itself. I believe that the only, and I certainly hope that I'm corrected if I'm wrong, that the only direction that exists on this, what is being called the Phase 2 of the sure water process, the only direction that exists on that is, I believe, the report the council received at its last regular meeting, or the meeting before, about the potential funding scenarios for a pipeline. That's the only direction that staff has right now to include or to engage the public with in this Phase 2. And that's, well, with that being the only thing that exists, and in the interests of us including all the considerations that we can, I included the following considerations, and well, I'm moving right now that council include the following considerations in the ongoing sure water process. And perhaps this is the motion itself, that the mandate from the province of 50% of future water needs having to be met by conservation, and that the estimates on the developing of the cost of a pipeline to either proposed source would be considerable, and that notwithstanding significant work done in years past, expert knowledge of and opportunities for management in the Kiskatna watershed have increased in the recent few months, and many more advances are expected in the next few years, and where possible, any narrower estimates on the growth that Dawson Creek will see in the near and far future, and how a pipeline would sit into the need for services that will extend thereof. I understand. Oh, I apologize. That's my motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it, put
Councillor
it on
Wilbur?
the table for discussion.
Councillor Malkinson?
I really think that these are important things that the public ought to consider in this second phase of this process, and I believe that council communication with staff on this process is not as full as it ought to be. Although some council members may feel that this is redundant or implied in this second phase of the process, I think that it is quite important, seeing as the previous direction that we had on the determinations of the pipeline were to wait until after we had considered the fiscal gap information. And with that all finished and done, and us sort of moving onward with this sure water process to make the public aware of considerations of going ahead with a pipeline, I think that these are things that really need to be considered. I think it's awfully important.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, once we had received that report from Shelley concerning the cost implications, we resolved that there would be considerable communication with the public about costing and further progress. But one of the things that I am confused about, and I'm going to support this motion, but this is through you to staff here. The first bullet says the mandate from the province of 50% of future water needs having to be met by conservation. My understanding on that is somewhat confused, in that I believe that prior to any consideration for water licenses, we must have shown some conservation efforts, but I'm wondering if that is an exact amount. I mean, how does the province calculate that? if, for instance, we've had a 40% expansion to our business community, and we have managed to not, without me complicating, how does our staff have any idea how the province determines whether a community meets this so-called threshold before they allow for a new water license?
Thank you. Is that a question through the administration, Jim?
Through your worship, the short answer to that is no. So far as we know, the province haven't applied those criteria to a water license expansion request, and we don't know how they would handle it. We do know what the provisions say, and there is a task force that's now wrapped up its work that is proposing legislation in the spring setting around modernizing the Water Act. And so we don't exactly know what those regulations are going to look like, and we don't know of a situation where it's been applied.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? Councillor Wilbur?
Well, now I am confused because I thought that we were told that conservation was to be 50%. So where did we get that from? Duncan, if maybe you could let, where did you get that number from, I guess? Because now I'm confused. I thought that was the percentage too that we were told.
Through your worship, it is. It's what's in the current guidelines and regulations, but that's a different matter than how they're applying that. We don't know how they're applying that. The blanket statement is that we have to demonstrate that we have accomplished 50% of our new need through conservation, and what they'll accept in that terms, what the baselining they'll require is, we don't know that. And it's all what if scenario now. If council makes a determination to go ahead and seek a new license, then we'll employ some consultants that can get that information together for us.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Are you ready for the question on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 3.1, the minutes of our previous meetings from council for adoption. Councillor Schumann?
No, I wanted to have some councillor business.
Perfect.
So I missed last council meeting, and I'm sorry I was not there, but I was in Vancouver. I attended the Shell's Canadian Innovation Summit and gave a presentation on the collaboration that we had between Shell and the city of Dawson Creek on our reclamation our water reclamation facility. It was a really interesting event. Lots of talk about innovation and collaboration throughout the day. And there was a really great interactive display of the Dawson Creek water reclamation facility. So it was something that I was pleased to attend and represent the city at. I also attended the Metro Vancouver Zero Waste conference last week, and also found that very interesting. I did have a chance to chat briefly with Alan Langdon of MMBC, and all I heard was glowing reports of how it was so wonderful to deal with our staff. Apparently it's not as wonderful for him to deal with other city staff. So I wanted to pass along kudos to our staff for being very agreeable and easy to work with. And that's all.
Thank you for that, and thank you for attending that meeting with Shell 2 weeks ago. It was really an important event for our community in terms of demonstrating the importance of a partnership with the water reclamation plant with Shell, and I appreciate you going on behalf of council. Thank you. Councillor McFadden?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. You have councillor business?
I do, Your Worship. Thank you. Good morning. How you doing?
I couldn't be better. Thanks for asking.
Just on touching on the Shell reclamation that Councillor Schumann went to, my information from the folks, my contacts in Victoria, is that she did an outstanding job and a great presentation. So kudos. Just one other note, Your Worship. As you're aware, Central Mountain is adding some flights to the airport here in Dawson Creek. They'll be overnighting on November the 11th, and the first morning flight will be out at 7:40 on the 12th, and that will continue onward as long as the folks use it. On the morning of November the 12th, the airport's hosting a buffet breakfast, and all of council is invited, and the media is invited, and I think the general public is invited too. I understand you're going to be out of town, so Acting Mayor Malkinson. are you-
November? I'm not November.
November? Who's got November?
I think it's Kenny.
Not me.
Anyway, the acting mayor, whoever he or she may be, is certainly welcome to come and represent the city at that thing at 7 o'clock, November the 12th at the airport. Thank you, Your Worship.
Start spreading the news. We're leaving today. That's our new theme song for CMA. Thank you, Councillor McFadden. Councillor Malkinson.
Just a couple of things that I wanted to update council on, Your Worship. There's the Family Friendly Events Committee is holding a spooktacular at the Pioneer Village on the 31st, I believe. I was invited by some of the members of that committee to and decorate one of the buildings in the village, and I'd certainly like to welcome any other members of council if they wish to spook or give treats to some kids that evening. They're certainly more than welcome to attend. And you can speak to me afterwards if you are interested. I also recently attended a Healthy Communities workshop in Fort St. John that was held by, in partnership with Northern Health and a provincial Healthy Communities organization, and it was quite good actually. There was representatives from many different agencies that have a role to play in health, and there was a broad definition of health established right off the bat. So, not so obvious revelation of the day was that we all have a role to play, and there was a great discussion about partnerships, and I really believe that promoting a healthy community is a really big key to sustainability. So I was awfully enthusiastic in my discussion with other with the other representatives and partners there about how to how exactly to foster that, and the positive impacts that has on preventative care and healthy practices, and how you can utilize social connections and community connections to spread healthy practices. So it was there was pretty good conversations that were held there, and I think that the outcomes will be in the pudding. But I believe it was a good workshop. So
Thank you for that.
yeah.
Councillor Wilbur?
Yeah, I was actually able to attend the Health Officers Commission and Northern Health's workshop on boom and bust communities, and I found it very interesting that they were going forward with all this planning, and all the northern communities we had to let them know that we're actually in the boom. So we're not planning for it, we're in it, and we're in some cases trying to catch up. But what did come out of it and was very interesting, and I'm sure they're going to be having conversations with their college, is looking at dual credit programs. Maybe we should be looking at some dual credit programs for nursing, for medical programs. So it's something we're going to need. They recognize there's going to be issues there, and they'll be moving forward with that. So I found that interesting, and I was glad I attended because they were able to see firsthand what is going on in our communities, and we were there to voice the pains that we have. So that was interesting, and I enjoyed going. And speaking of the airport, Better at Homes has arranged for some of our local seniors to tour our reclamation plant and our airport, and they'll be having lunch at the Runaway Cafe. So good on Arlene Thorpe for organizing that and getting our seniors out there and letting them know what services are available too. And some of them are very excited that they will be able to fly to visit family right from Dawson Creek. So just put that out there, and thanks to them for organizing that.
Thank you. Anything further? Thank you. So we are close to I'm going to do minutes if I can and get through those before we start our delegation. So motion to approve the minutes from our special meeting of September 30th and regular meeting of October 7th, moved by Councillor Schumann, seconded by Councillor Kenny. All those
Actually, wasn't at that meeting. I probably shouldn't move those minutes.
I move.
moved by Councillor Malkinson, seconded by Councillor Kenny.
Sorry.
Discussion? Is there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. So we're going to move now to our delegations at 9 a.m. Our first delegation is Brent Hodson, who's in attendance for the Movember proclamation.
Business of rising.
I'll do it now.
The clock struck 9.
See what's there.
Yeah.
Not here?
She's gonna try and contact him, but we can maybe just move on to the next.
Sure.
What a beautiful day.
So our next proclamation then is, while we're waiting for Brent to arrive, is Kathleen Connolly from the Dawson Creek and District Chamber of Commerce.
Morning, everybody.
Hello.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys this morning?
Good.
Welcome.
For those of you who don't know, this is Candace Wetter. She is one of our newest directors that you'll be swearing, actually the mayor will be swearing in tonight. Candace is with Chances.
So I don't have the proclamation
What?
I've got two for Movember.
No way.
Mhm. Sorry, I should have checked that.
We've got it on the computer there, eh?
Oh, yeah. Do you want mine? I have it right here.
Well, I just, I didn't even try it.
That's okay, no worries.
Morning.
How are you? It's great to see you.
Morning.
That's a warm welcome.
On behalf of Mayor and Council. So whereas in conjunction with National Small Business Week, October 21st to the 25th, 2013, the Dawson Creek and District Chamber of Commerce will be celebrating local small business and entrepreneurship development. And whereas Small Business Week is an opportunity to pay tribute to the entrepreneurs who drive the Canadian economy and use their energy to expand Canada's business sector. It is also an opportunity for the Dawson Creek and District Chamber of Commerce to celebrate their accomplishment and raise their profile. And whereas Small Business Week serves as an opportunity to inform the public on how the Dawson Creek and District Chamber of Commerce plays a key role in developing small business in Dawson Creek. Now therefore, I do hereby proclaim and recognize the week of October 21st to 25th, 2013 as Small Business Week in Dawson Creek.
That's awesome.
There you go, lady. Congratulations.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speech.
Stand over there.
Speech.
Yes. So pretty.
Case it's a
Keep it up. Yeah. you're good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. So we're really pleased with how the chamber has worked really hard at representing small businesses in the last year. It's really important. This year we're doing a scavenger hunt, which some council will be helping us celebrate on Friday, to try and push people out to our small businesses to get to know our owners and what's available in our community. So really important that you get out this week and support small business.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming this morning. Our next delegation this morning is Mr. Reg Whitten from the City of Dawson Creek Watershed Steward, John Kalinschuk, the Water Resource Manager, and Melanie Turcott, the State Sustainability Clerk in the City of Dawson Creek for Dawson Creek Water Week. Now I have to fess up here. So Reg and I have worked together over the last 3 years, and this was prior to any thoughts of anything being involved in the city, with my involvement and owning a small cabin out at One Island Lake. And we started a water sampling project about 3 years ago at the lake, just to ensure and be aware of the quality and issues around our lake, and so I started working with Reg about 2 years ago, I think, as we started that baseline work. And so I'm really pleased to have them come here today and give us an overview and some information on the Kiskatna watershed and the importance of that to our community, to our region, to our area, to our province. And to me, I attended a session. I attended a session when I was with Northern Health in regards to a lady who's involved in some of the work partnering with Reg now from the University of Northern BC, Margot Parks, Dr. Margot Parks. And she talked about the connection that we really need to make with our environment and our area with regards to health. And she used the description that really it's the water is almost like the lungs that we have as our body, and cleansing, and it was really it was an interesting comment to me in terms of how that link is made. So I'm really happy to have Reg and the group here today to be able to give us some information. So Reg, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, it's we're on the verge of some great new initiatives in Dawson, and what we've decided to do today is present a little bit of our work at One Island Lake, and a special mention of an initiative. As you know, we've had World Water Day and Drinking Water Week every year for the past few years, and there's another initiative out there, which is World Water Week. And so we thought, well, we're part of the big world of water, so let's see what we could also do to show our own little initiatives there. So Melanie's got a little poster up. So this week we wanted to, coming up here on the 28th, we wanted to be able to highlight some initiatives, particularly in recognition of a sign initiative that's going to be also launched that week, to really raise awareness of just about what we're doing with respect to water conservation and how we fit within the bigger scheme. In BC, what we've been hearing this morning about water conservation goals out of the Smart Water strategy, the BC Water Smart strategy, this all fits within that initiative. And so connecting people directly who live in the watershed is important, how we relate in our own watershed and supplying long-term needs, and what we can do directly in the community. So that's part of the initiative. And so there's going to be the public launch on the 30th with the sign initiative, so the signs will be installed. Great surprise. I think it's been a great collaboration by all the key groups, Rotary, Timberline, Dawson Creek Watershed Society, of course, and quite a great example of, you know, raising awareness about our own little creek. It's our own backyard. So this really relates well to what your mayor has been saying about what people are trying to do in One Island Lake. They're part of the watershed, and it's two ways of showing what's happening within the watershed, what's happening within our own city system, and what's happening within conservation efforts within the community. So we can probably bring up that little presentation if we can bring the technology to bear. A little early for wine and cheese for the debut of this little production, but I don't know how technology is going to click in here. So we're quite excited about with the sign initiative. They're going to be hot off the press today, and so we got the council committed to helping get the signs out.
And I'd just like to make a note while they're setting up here that we will be offering tours of the water treatment plant and the water reclaim facility during this week. Also, the Wednesday will be called Wednesday Water Conservation Wednesday. So we're trying to encourage people in the community to use as less water as possible, and to watch for more information on our city and Planning for People websites.
So while the presentation is just loading as well, there's a few initiatives I think that are important to be aware of. The Northeast Water Strategy is also being developed right now. I've had a chance to comment on that. That's strictly looking at, you know, the Northeast region and trying to make sure all the agencies have got their various policies all lined up. And so we'll have a chance to comment on that more when it gets released. But I think it's great that the government is coming to us now and asking for direct input. I've definitely sensed a lot of support for what we're doing. So that's great to have both on the part of government and industry, yes.
Reg, will you be commenting on, I know the public comment period for the new water legislation is very short, I noticed. It's a very short public comment period. Will you be commenting on that?
I'd
those
like to build on
legislation?
what has already gone in. The city's also commented earlier on the Water Modernization Act previously.
Yeah.
So we'll go back and we'll see, you know, what proposals have been there, and be working closely with of course, with all the staff to coordinate some kind of response. And another nice mention about this initiative here on the Dawson Creek Watershed Awareness Project is the Real Estate Foundation supported our work and gave us the 2013 award for water sustainability, which was very much, you know, in support of what we're trying to do in terms of leadership on. So
And
there's
you're
a
going to Vancouver on
Vancouver,
Thursday?
Friday night. There's
Friday
a little. There's the BC Land Awards, which is separate, and then this they're gonna present this as well. So there'll be a little video documentary. So
It's awesome.
council members are to attend that.
Do you have a tux?
I haven't worn a tux for a long time, but I'll find something nice.
Yeah.
Do we have a live link on this? I don't know.
Hey.
So we know.
Tyra just needs to get out of her chair. It's got scared.
You really do get the boot then?
This little production was in the works for, you know, several months, but went through a little review in this past few weeks here. We've made some changes, so we can see there on there.
You're looking up there, I'm looking. There, thank you.
We get some good volume.
The Eco Health and Watersheds in Northern BC project focuses on watersheds as settings for health and well-being. The project is co-led by the University of Northern British Columbia and the Northern Health Authority, and involves researchers, knowledge users, and watershed partners from across Northern BC. In 2013, project partners involved with stewardship of the Kaskatna watershed were asked to share a story about the interconnections of health, environment, and community in their watershed. This is their story.
If we're just managing for resource development, and you know, we can do that, we can do all these assessments and come back and we get approvals, but amidst all that, we get this fragmented approach. Someone that can look at and see the interactions. You can manage multiple files in your brain between the social, the economic, the environmental, the political, the technological, and really you can't move very much forward without keeping tracks on all those fronts. It really comes down to sort of having that first-hand approach. So you can't do this in a conceptual level. You've got to be brain in there, and whether it be looking at industry practices or agricultural management, you've got to come from an interest-based approach. What do we know about the hydroecology of the area? What do we know about key habitats? And then sort of plan from within. And it's understanding that sort of that macro level picture, the 50,000 foot view, and then kind of working down, and it's closely connected to people that are living in the watershed. When we talked about the idea of an island lake, it's because when I first went up there, I was so intrigued by the fact that this community got this volunteer lake sampling program. My hope really in trying to promote this idea of a digital story for that is for those people to tell their story and to show that they live in the same watershed that the city gets its water supply, and their needs with respect to water is actually given priority in the sense that those lake levels are going to be managed at the same time as we're trying to maintain levels to supply our water needs.
With all the industrial activity around here and like cities like Dawson keep growing, we started this water survey for One Island Lake under the Volunteer Lake Monitoring Program with the Minister of Environment, BC, and that is to find out if there's any changes in the lake water because it is such a clear lake, it's a jewel of a lake. What I would like to see is, after we finish this water survey, is a continuation of that, and a continuation of maintaining this lake as pristine as it is.
Fishing in itself, or per se, is not as important as having to get away from the major cities, away from town, away from trouble. We want them to become fishermen. If they become fishermen, they're going to look after the watershed.
I see many of our generations out there. Ours had so much fun. I'd like to see our great-grandchildren. I'd like to see it go on forever. I hope it does.
What we have to look after.
The healthy family is the core to me of what brings a healthy community, and it's having that recreational location for those kids to go out with now their children, and that we have with them, to be able to really enjoy just really great times, and to have a spot where you know the lake is close by and it's got great water quality where the kids can go enjoy all the recreational activities that the lake provides, swimming, water sports, fishing, and they love to be there. And it's so rare to have that for anybody. So to me, to be able to have that for the future of the future generations, I just think it's so amazing. The more awareness we have now about where you see lakes in the area that have been damaged as a result of human contact. And the One Island Lake is a small lake, it's a shallow lake. Every one of us have that passion to ensure that One Island Lake stays the pristine little jewel that it is in the area. And as generations now are transitioning, there's new people coming out there, you're still seeing that same passion.
So this is an example of the kind of ways that you can connect with community and really bring people to an understanding of this whole need for collaboration. That really is what we're talking about. The point that was made there, that 37% of the water allocated in the Cascatna is held back for water storage at One Island. The city of Dawson Creek is 47% of the water allocated. So it's all a question of scale and understanding that, there's these priority water uses. So when we talk about going forward with new water conservation, et cetera, government has to still hold to those commitments in managing it. And there's other, Ducks Unlimited have major amounts of water, and those are options potentially to explore for partnerships as well. So that's the story so far. We look forward to doing a few more of these and part of the Sure Water Initiative, keeping people really informed.
Good job.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much. What's that?
That was hearing.
So we now have Brent is here this morning, Hudson, on behalf of the proclamation for Movember. Welcome,
Looks like
Brent.
he's already got
Thanks,
started.
guys. You want me to say a few words?
Sure.
You're cheating.
I think you should shave that off and start fresh like everyone else.
Well, that's what you do. You start
Yeah.
November 1st completely clean shaven.
Okay.
So this was just my warm up. So this is the last couple of years that I've been living in Fort St. John. I've gotten the city council there to proclaim the month of November as Movember in the city, and it was a great kickoff to the initiative. And so with me being in Dawson Creek now, I'd like to ask you guys to do the same as well, as we're looking to partner with some local businesses in town and to create some fun events throughout the month of November to raise money for Movember. And as you know, the money raised stays in Canada and goes towards Prostate Cancer Canada, but also with this year they've added testicular cancer, and then last year they added in mental health as well. So lots of great initiatives, and looking to raise a lot of money in Dawson Creek this year and create some fun events and just have a good time and raise awareness for men's health.
Brent, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll have a proclamation I'll read for us.
Okay.
For you, and if you want to come up, and we'll present it to you on behalf of Mayor and Council. Whereas knowledge is power, prevention is everything, and early detection is the key in men's health issues. And whereas Movember kicks off its 7th campaign in Canada, and whereas gentlemen across the country are encouraged to grow mustaches during November to raise awareness and funds for prostate cancer, testicular cancer, mental health, and men's health. And therefore I do hereby proclaim November 2013 as Movember in Dawson Creek, and encourage all residents of Dawson Creek to join in raising awareness and funds for prostate cancer, testicular cancer, mental health, and men's health.
Will you grow a mustache?
So the really, really terrible part about growing a mustache and goatee when you're old like me is that it's white.
You could get that
So
stuff.
the mayor is going to kick off Movember on November 1st with, as usual, a huge amount of anxious anticipation to what the month will hold. Thanks very much, Brent.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you taking a leadership role on behalf of the community for an important topic. I know certainly Northern Health kicked off about a year or two ago the Men's Health Initiative, and it was about how awful us men tend to be about our men's health issues and going to the doc. And there was a great story when I was on the Northern Health Board about a gentleman, and they asked him why did he not go to the doctor, and he said, because the last time I went, I got diabetes from him. Because that's where I found out I got diabetes, was from the doc, so I'm not going back. And so for all of us as men, we do have that aversion sometimes to go on to see the doc. And so this to me is just an important message for all of us to ensure we take that early prevention and detection is the key. And so I appreciate you taking the leadership again on behalf of the community. Thank you. And I hope I don't have to go it alone. I'm sure the other councilors, the boys will be there with me.
And staff, they're always.
And staff are always there as well, so I appreciate the support.
Get a little hairy. It's a little hairy around here.
Our next delegation, we have Joyce Lee from Tourism BC, Tourism Dawson Creek, Matt McWilliam, our energy manager, and Melanie Turcott, sustainability clerk, regarding the Candlelight Conservation Dinner. Welcome.
I'm gonna, you don't get to pick, Cheryl.
T-shirts are more? Yep.
Good morning.
Perfect.
Come to the front, come to the front. Yeah.
Big.
Let me know if that's not the
Short
right size. I'm not
and
sure
big.
exactly where they're all located.
Large fat, XXL, dude.
We got a triple there. Attaboy. Double is pajamas.
There you go, put your shirt up.
I'm recycling mine. I have it from last year.
Okay,
There.
good. Go back. Oh, that's from last year. Sorry.
You brought it.
You brought it with you,
I had it
Cheryl?
in my drawer all year.
It's in your drawer.
I'll take a
Not
large.
bad.
Everything's in your drawer.
Not bad.
Let me know if
I had
that's
mine in my drawers all year.
Essentially not, Jen.
Medium?
That's fine.
No, it just popped up.
Okay, make sure that's medium. I'm
I
just
don't even need t-shirts that looks the same every year.
Oh, look, I break, I'll look at the.
Large.
Looking pretty trendy with your
Absolutely.
navy blue tie, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's all good.
Oh, nobody take a small. They are super small.
Large.
Super, super small.
There you are, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joyce Lee. I'm the manager of visitor services for Tourism Dawson Creek. And it's this fun time of the year again for the Candlelight Conservation Dinner. As you can see, you've all been presented with t-shirts. We've donned here today to celebrate and take part in this dinner. Tourism Dawson Creek is very proud to be partnering with Sustainable Dawson Creek and with this BC Hydro initiative. This is our third year participating in this event. It's taking place this Thursday night, October 24th. I've been doing this for 3 years, working closely with Melanie for promoting this, and we started out with 4 grand prizes in 2011. As you can see from this poster, we are up to 8 grand prizes for this night. So what happens is it's a BC Hydro initiative to encourage businesses and people to conserve energy. When people go out to dinner on October 24th, at any of, there's 13 restaurants participating in the dinner itself, you'll be given a ticket to enter your name in for a draw for one of these grand prizes. And the grand prizes are phenomenal. There's stays in some of our very nice hotels, a one-night stay in our very nice hotel in town, and a $100 gift certificate for dinner sponsored by one of 8 electrical companies that we have in town at one of these restaurants. So they're wonderful dinners. This year we've added some bonus draws. We've had a couple of anonymous sponsors is sponsoring for these other restaurants down here in town. And of special interest to us and cause to celebrate is Poos Koopies on board this year. We've got Doc Hollies and Curry, etc. participating. So we're really thrilled to be doing this. We've got a draw box with the names of our restaurants in here, and we're going to be, Melanie's going to be passing it around and hoping that all the city councilors will draw a restaurant name, and you'll be hopefully going out and being a greeter wearing your t-shirt and going to your restaurant and greeting the folks that are coming in and talking a little bit about the conservation dinner. So as Melanie goes around.
Funny, I just went in the
Lee's Family Restaurant.
Okay, I'm going to kind of.
Lee's is
No,
great.
I won't be here.
Aw,
No, I am.
that's okay. Maybe one of the administrators.
What?
We'll see. Boston Pizza. Awesome.
All right. I'm short, Mel. We gotta bring it
Sorry.
down.
Did my
I've got Stewie's dining. Hey.
Are you going towards this?
I'm committed, sorry.
Camera?
You better do count.
There's Mr. Schnoot.
Will.
What's it? 5:30.
Fixes.
I'm sorry, I'll be having a candlelight dinner on the riverside in Paris, so yeah, seriously, yeah.
Seriously.
Why was candlelight?
It will be.
Oh, chances.
Heidi? Large motor in.
Ira, did you want to participate?
Roll a pub.
There's Jim.
Yeah, roll up.
He's stuck with. Mr. Mikes?
So,
Mr. Mikes? Kathleen?
Oh,
Can we get the chamber on board? Sure.
We'd be happy to.
No, just let me
You go.
last year. I never did any of that.
We will be at Sola's.
Very
Oh,
nice.
I think having it.
So, sorry, I'll do something, Melanie. So, media, I want you guys to pick a number between 1 and 10.
9,
3.
4.
I'm buying dinner for Andrea and her, whoever. I'll pay. I'll buy. Yeah, I'll pay for it. Here you go. I want to donate dinner to the media because they're so good to us.
White spot. White spot. Jerry? Do you want to participate?
Well, actually, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be, I have to check my schedule because I know if I'm on call that night, so.
Okay, so we have 2 left, so we'll see if we can.
2 really good
Oh,
ones.
get,
Brown
uh,
ones and nice directors.
You gotta get Rick. Get Rick.
No, they're going to the village. The
Oh.
downstairs, yeah. At,
So,
two counselors.
thank you guys so much. It's a great, I actually attended last year on behalf of Blair, who wasn't able to go, and I thought, what a great idea it was, and we really enjoyed going out for dinner, my wife and I, and I'm happy to see us continue on and get such great support from the community for such a great awareness and a great cause, so thank you.
What about Julie?
Oh, Julie, would you like to?
I will, I'll buy supper for Rick, the president of the Rotary Club here.
Oh.
What about chopped liver?
Yeah,
Part of my motion or my proclamation today is an event that's going on.
the same time. Oh, gee.
All right,
I'm sorry.
thank you guys so much, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. See you on Thursday.
Should have checked the
So are you
dates.
gonna come check up on us? Make sure we're doing
Yeah.
All the restaurants?
And everybody wears their t-shirt.
Wear your
Jim.
t-shirt.
Jim, did you want to participate? Oh, we got Jim here. Perfect.
Mr. Schnoot.
What's that?
Please go to
Let me
the
just do
back.
business arising from the
Oh,
minutes and
yes,
get rid-
because I wanted to.
Thank you, everyone. So we're completed our delegations. I'd like to get back to item 4, business arising from our minutes. Cheryl, Councillor Schumann, sorry.
Yeah, so when I was reading the minutes, as I was not at that meeting, I noted that our mayor will be appointing someone to the tourism board, and I just wanted to say that I am very interested in that. I don't know if anyone else is, but I am.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say that out loud. It's something that I always wanted, but I always got it. Even when he wasn't elected anymore, he still got it. But yeah, it's something I've been quite interested in and passionate about. So.
Perfect, thank you. We'll be, I've had some conversations with some of the councillors about those, the committees and the committee structure, and so I'll be doing, getting that completed this week. And we've got now Councillor Parslow has brought forward the Miles Zero Park Society rep for the city on that as well, so.
No.
That's a community liaison.
Community
not a-
liaison?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the
All right.
city liaison, just someone from the.
Community?
Community, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny?
Yeah, there might have been some confusion on that appointment for council that might need to be cleared up a little bit as far as that representation that was requested when Darcy Dover's name was brought
Okay.
up. Yeah, because I was talking to the people with the association. I don't think it's a board position, so maybe we need to
So we have a,
further investigate that.
It's
so it's,
whatever the position that Bud had,
But
whatever that
yeah,
position
he's
is.
still doing it.
Oh,
Yeah, there's some confusion around that.
oh, okay, because it was our understanding he was.
Yeah, he's still sitting on, like, he's appointed to the heritage, like, represent for the heritage, you know, getting the Alaska Highway Heritage
Yes?
designation. But there is some confusion there. He was still kind of there.
Oh,
because
okay.
we appointed him as our representative
yeah.
on the
Yeah,
board.
Well, anyway, there's need
okay.
to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We need to clarify that.
Need to
Clear that
clarify.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm not clarifying it very well.
Counselor Wilbur?
Oh, I was just gonna reiterate what Councilor Schumann said, that we did appoint Bud to sit on that board as a city representative. So I guess then the decision is, do we want someone from city council or do we want someone from the community?
Yeah, we need to have that conversation and understand the appointment that Bud has for us, because it was the motion that was made was we wanted to have our council rep, one of the councilors appointed to the board at our last meeting. So we need to have that clarified.
I know one thing, there was, when they were talking about representation on that board, they were looking at different sectors that they were looking for representation from, and that's how Darcy's name came up.
Okay.
It was representation of a specific sector. So
Okay.
it wasn't looking at
Well, I like to eat.
government.
Councillor Parslow?
Well, certainly is a very different message than what was given at the last meeting,
Yeah.
when they were hoping that the council would pay for all him as being our city representative. And so, and we were told that Bud had a new appointment and was and so on. But I strongly believe it needs to be a city elected individual, not somebody from the community.
Thank you. We'll clarify that through the process with tourism. Oh, okay. Okay, that's right. Absolutely. Any other business arising? So I'm going to go back. We have one further proclamation that we just have missed on the agenda, and I want to bring it forward. And it's Rick Hackworth is here today in regards to a proclamation on World Polio Day. So welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Morning, everyone. My name is Rick Hackworth. I'm with the Dawson Creek Rotary Clubs. I hope you're all aware of Rotary and what Rotary does in the world. We're a worldwide organization, and back in 1985, Rotary International started an initiative to eliminate polio in the world. I won't talk long, but back then they were getting over 1,000 cases a day in the worldwide, and now today there are only 3 countries left that have never stopped transmission, and we have fewer than 250 polio cases worldwide in 2012. So it's 99% down. But the World Health Organization says if we don't stay the course and completely eliminate it, that these cases could rebound to 10 million in as little as 4 years. So we're putting the push on to eliminate polio. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is backing Rotary's contributions 2-to-1, up to 350 million. Now, they've started a recent campaign. It's called This Close, and people like Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Jackie Chan, Jack Nicklaus, Bill Gates, and all these people appear on TV and they say, we're this close. And that close part is the toughest part, because now we're working against religious superstitions, politics, and war. And they actually have to, the money is getting huge, because they actually have to hire armed guards to take these volunteers in to immunize these little kids. So we're asking for the city's support on declaring this Thursday, the 24th, as World Polio Day in Dawson Creek. If I may ask for that support.
Thank you so much, and I have a proclamation that I'll read and sign. Whereas every year on October 24th, people around the world shine a spotlight on the importance of global eradication. And whereas World Polio Day is a Rotarian initiative to help create awareness of the ravages of polio and garner support for eradication efforts. And whereas since World Polio Day last year, the number of new cases of polio has declined from 467 at this time last year to 171 this year. And now therefore, I do hereby proclaim October 24th, 2013 as World Polio Day in Dawson Creek. Rick, thanks very much on behalf of the Mayor and Council and the citizens of Dawson Creek to the Rotary Club for your efforts in a really important initiative. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
So you have an event, Rick, that's going on that evening?
Yeah,
This-
actually, it starts at 3:30. If anybody wants, you can get on the internet, and there's a, just go to, there's a website, just go in Rotary Polio. I haven't,
We'll look it up right away.
Global Polio Eradication Initiative, and that should take you to a link. And there's it's a worldwide event that's going on, so you can get on there, and it runs for 2 or 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a presentation by all the people.
Right on.
Thank you. So item 5, correspondence. Do we have any information, any correspondence to bring forward? Thank you. So I want to take a quick 5-minute break.
Yes, that's a good idea.
You're welcome.
That's just what I was
Thanks for
thinking.
your approval there,
Just what I was
Counselor.
thinking, Your Worship.
Came and visited you, drank some beer on the back porch.
So we're ready to go back to business.
Back to work.
So agenda item 7 is our reports. First item, 7.1, we have report number 13216 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the capital asset status report. Councillor Malkinson.
I'd like to move that report number 13-216 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2012 capital asset status report be received, and further that the 2012 tangible asset status report be approved and presented, and further that phase 2 of the capital asset plan be placed as an item for consideration on Council's 2014 strategic priorities chart.
Seconded by Councillor Schumann. Discussion? Councillor Parslow?
Thank you. Well, it's good to have this phase 1 completed. I just I went to a good session at UBCM on asset management, and I think it was presented by a representative of the city of North Vancouver, and I was made very clear about the work that some municipalities have been doing. I don't know who they are, but from memory, but a number. They've been some of them had been to Australia, and some had some experts come over from Australia. And they are modeling their asset management plan on the Australian model, which would basically see as soon as you build an asset, you are required, I guess it's state law or federal law in Australia, I'm not sure. You know, when you attend a workshop, you miss some pieces of it, but I'm sure our CAO knows all about it. But I'm just saying I really liked the concept that they were working at in some of the lower mainland municipalities as relates to asset management. I guess in Australia, by law, when you build something, you have some expert advice, I guess, on how the length of life of that asset, whether it's a road or whether it's a building, and you must budget for its replacement based upon, I guess, some actuarial numbers and life expectancy numbers, so that when that asset needs rebuilding or that road surface needs repaving, you have the money on hand. It's law. It's required. And a number of municipalities in Lower Mainland have as goals to have that Australian model in place. North Vancouver, at the presentation, the figure I've got down here, they're working to have on hand that model, and when something comes up, they've got the money to pay for it. They're right now at 65% level. As an illustration, the presenter said something like a week before the presentation they were 57%. But they had somebody from Australia over there, and they realized that they had made a little mistake, just to illustrate the point there. They were, when they were talking about roads, were looking at the cost of replacing the road, but the surface and also the subsurface. Well, you no need to replace the subsurface if you're maintaining the surface. And so they removed that cost of subsurface preparation from their inventory, and they moved to 65%. So this is great work that's been done, but my question is, what is the long-term goal? Are we working to that Australian model, or what would be the desired condition that we're working towards as it relates to asset management and the replacement of assets when it comes about? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Through you to Jim.
Well, of course, that's a matter of political will. The steps that the provincial government in British Columbia has taken to date is to require you to inventory your capital assets, determine their current state and condition, determine their depreciation value, and create a plan which will give you your priorities for replacement going forward, which is phase 2. It's up to councils how or if they fund that. There is no proposal here for a state law that would require it. So your preliminary insights in this first phase are that you need around $6 million a year targeted to your existing infrastructure. Additional insights in the report are that rather than targeting your existing infrastructure, you've devoted yourselves over the last 10 years to almost entirely capital investments in new infrastructure only. So you are showing, on balance, that your infrastructure is only 30% depreciated. But that's because the multiplex is very new. You've got a very new reclaimed water center. You have many, many pieces of public infrastructure, including the building you're sitting in, that are completely depreciated, that are long past any predicted useful life, but no dollars are being devoted to that. So the question of whether you're going to put aside $6 million a year for infrastructure replacement is a completely political decision. It's tied up in the fiscal gap. The fiscal gap exactly recommends that you divert money from program spending to capital for these reasons, but you've made no decisions about that at all. So neither Shelley or I can tell you whether you are going to try to replicate voluntarily the Australian model or not. Taxes are going up in North Vancouver, and it seems to be acceptable to the citizens there. I have no idea whether that's your aspiration here or not.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow and
Okay,
Schumann.
that's fine. I wasn't sure if there'd been some past decisions about that. So I very much support this work, and I will support, obviously, moving on to phase 2. And I will very much work as a councillor to try to have these some funding set aside. But maybe it might be informative for council and to discuss and learn more maybe what is going on in some of the lower mainland municipalities, and reflect on what is our long-term will. I mean, we've got to do something, and something is being done. But in other words, what is our desired condition? You know, when in 20 years from now, whatever it takes to do that, because obviously it's a long-term project. So I just offer that to you, Mayor, as something that maybe we need to think about. But I will certainly be voting in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, so my question is for Shelley. Would we be in a better position to tackle such a question after the stage 2 capital management plan, asset management plan is finished?
Through your worship, the recommendation in the report says that in order to move to phase 2, you need to dedicate staff, resources, money, maybe planning work, consulting work. We have to do condition reports. There's a lot of work around that plan too. So I don't think you could defer. I think you need to bring it into the mix of everything that is on the plate for what the city does.
Councillor Malkinson? And
Oh, yes, I was going to speak. I wanted to echo Councillor Parslow's praise of the work that has been done here. The identification of all of the assets, I'm sure, was an incredible task to undertake, and it's a good step, I believe, towards sustainability and relevancy. Just sort of a sideline question, if I could. Forgive me for delving too much into the details, but how would one calculate the value? Well, I understand on our actual structures, working, you have certain values that are prescribed annually to the structure, but how would one calculate the value of a road or something like that? Is it the cost to put it in, or?
Through your worship, you might get some insight into that in the capital asset policy. So it basically gets into some assumptions, but when we were preparing it, we took historical cost records that we had, plus we also used some consulting expertise in the engineering area, and took some industry practices and applied them to the model.
Yeah.
Jim?
Through your worship, so in Shelley's report, the outcomes for phase 2 are prioritization of the long-term capital asset management plan as a strategic priority, dedicated financing and resourcing to move the plan forward, completing a capital asset needs assessment based on service provision priorities, completing up-to-date condition assessments for major infrastructure, setting maintenance and replacement targets including measuring results, aligning future capital investment requirements to service provision, outlining replacement and expansion requirements, and integrating capital asset management plans and procedures into operational service provision. I think that's what you guys are talking about. I think we're on this.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor McFadden?
It sounds like that we are really heading towards the Australian model, maybe by default almost, or by happenstance, but I think I would like, wondering if staff could do a little research on the Australian model and perhaps give us a 1 or 2 pager on the more detail about how it works. I think I did attend that seminar with Councillor Parslow in Vancouver. One was early in the morning ones, I think, but
Yes.
I would like to have some more information in detail, because I think we're probably heading that direction, whether we realize it or not. But I would just like to have a short read on how they do it down there. I wonder if staff could research that for us.
Thank you. Councillor Malkinson?
I did have a question about the last sentence of the recommendation, maybe a little more direct again, but it's a question about phase 2 of the capital asset management plan being placed as an item on Council's 2014 strategic priorities chart. My curiosity is where exactly it'll place on that chart. Is it going to be a departmental priority, or is it going to be one of the does staff envision it being one of the 5 identified council priorities to place on the chart?
Well, through your worship, we don't know if you're doing strategic planning in the same fashion you all have always done. We don't know if you're preparing a chart the same way you have always done. We don't know if you're taking up the fiscal gap, which we've already told you will eliminate most other, and there won't be staff resourcing for 5 main initiatives, so I can't answer any of those questions.
Yeah. The
That would be a
strategic,
council decision, is all I can tell you.
the strategic planning, obviously with the new mayor coming in, having some thoughts of the strategic planning process that I've had some preliminary conversation and discussion with council about. I'm exploring that. And so that'll be a significant component in my view in terms of, as Jim's identified, for us in terms of the strategic visioning exercise is a long-term view. And to me, this is exactly what we need to have this kind of conversation as part of that exercise. So
Conversation.
absolutely.
So it's not on the chart already for 2014,
No,
like it says
we
in
haven't
the
built the chart yet.
recommendation.
Councillor Parslow?
Perhaps I think it's important to look at the attachment to the report, just to highlight some things and make sure I'm reading it correctly. Staff has told council a number of times about the fiscal gap and this work that's going on and how we need to pay attention to our assets and budget for that and so on. So I'm referring here to the, I'm just trying to skim through a few things, but I'd like you to either confirm or say, no, I'm wrong here. As I'm reading this, this inventory, if I can call it that, capital stats inventory by category, December the 31st, 2012, I'm reading here and saying to myself, well, the City Hall, as an example, has outlived its useful life, according to this. Correct or incorrect?
Correct.
According to accounting principles, not according to the real world, and those are two different things.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that, please, Jim?
Yeah. The initiative for tangible capital assets is an accounting initiative. It was in Australia, and it is here. It's now mandatory provisions by the public sector accounting and audit board setting new standards for how you must account in an accounting fashion for your assets and their depreciation. But when an asset is fully depreciated, that means in the accounting world it holds zero value and zero future life, and you should have accounted for its replacement on your balance sheet. We're talking about how you show that asset on your financial statements. This building passed that benchmark 30 years ago. This building is still functional in the real world, but it holds no value in the accounting world. And so phase 2 moves beyond purely accounting formulaic driven decisions into priority setting. That's exactly where you have to go next.
Good. I won't bore you with the rest of the list then.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Anybody, any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Shelley, thank you for that. That's
Yes.
a ton of really, really valuable work for understanding the organization and the corporation of the City of Dawson Creek as it relates to the financial position. So I appreciate that. Item 7.2, report number 13239 from the Chief Financial Officer in regards to our 2014 budget timeline and assumptions. Councillor Schumann.
I would move that report number 12-239 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2014 budget timeline and assumptions be received, and further that the timeline and assumptions be approved as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Kenny. Discussion.
I'm wondering if
Councillor Parslow?
there's a number of decision points as being identified here, and I'm wondering if we might want to review them step by step.
Sure.
It's a good idea.
I don't know, unless I guess unless people accept all these decision points as presented, I certainly don't.
Well, there's absolutely, there's some questions, I think, from finance and from administration that we need to have answered, and a couple of them, so absolutely.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, that this, in fairness, it's very important for council to give staff direction on this matter of budget development, because their time is valuable, and I think it's irresponsible for them to work, for us to have them work in one direction and then reverse it, you know what I mean? Although that's I guess always our right, but it should be avoided if possible. So I first of all want to say I appreciate this, and I don't think it's up to me, perhaps, Mayor, to ask the questions. Maybe it's for you in this document,
Okay.
because I do think we need to spend some time over this, and I certainly
Perfect.
I agree with some of it and not others parts of it.
Jim?
So as a suggestion, I can lead you through each decision point, and you can tell me whether or not you wish to further explore that point, or whether it's okay.
All right, and I'm fine doing it either way, so yeah, go ahead.
So the first decision point for council is, does council wish to change the budget timeline and/or the public consultation process, and if so, how and why? So attached to this report is a timeline. The budget consultation is proposed to be the same as in previous years. And if you wish to change that, this would be the time.
Councillor Malkinson?
There is, when reviewing that point, there was one thing that struck home with me. The budget timeline of the public consultation process took me back to a newspaper article that I recalled reading last year about very little changing in our budget from the first consultation to the second consultation. And it prompted some personal thoughts, well, some thoughts personally, rather. And I asked myself the question, just as a councillor, what feedback had I received at the initial budget consultation that I had considered and balanced against the document that was in front of me. I'm certain that staff, well, I know for a fact that staff runs the feedback and input that we receive from the public vigorously against the plan, and all questions that are asked at those sessions are responded to. They are responded to and vetted, you know, the exact wording in the responses are vetted by council and read out at the next meeting. However, I just, I suppose there's possibly apathy in participating in this process. Maybe the belief that participation won't change much. And it's just this is just based on personal experience, but I'm wondering myself what I can do, or what sort of mechanism could be put in place that would have me as a councillor consider what feedback we receive at our initial public consultations, and have me balance it against all of the well, the document that we see. And I'm not certain if there's any mechanism that could be put in place, or whether this is just a personal struggle that I ought to more vigorously consider throughout the budget process. But certainly if there were individuals that had some ideas around this, and I'd love to hear them.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I support the budget timeline. I am frustrated about not the work of staff, but of the limited engagement of some people who have a lot to say about the city's affairs, in the consultation side. I'm not suggesting replacing what we are doing in the consultation side, but I am thinking that there may be some additional things we can do. And again, I'm only drawing on past experience and literature and stuff that I'm familiar with. And there's a concept that in every community or in every organization, there's a body of what we call key communicators. And I'm wondering, Mayor, if as an additional thing to what is already done in the consultation opportunities that are provided by council and staff, that you might want to consider having, if I could, for want of a better expression, Mayor's budget communication committee of key communicators from the community, because as I think about the fiscal gap work, and I know I can be accused of jumping ahead, but there's no harm in trying things out in small steps, explaining the budget to in a small room with 7 or 8 people who commit to talk to at least 7 or 8 other people, that slowly will improve the information. I mean, one of our guiding principles is an informed community, right? And one of those things can often happen is in structured small meetings, that it might be something that you take leadership in that and think about that as a strategy. So in answer to the question, I will support the budget timeline and the public consultation components of that timeline, but I'm wondering about, are there some new things that we can do? And I leave that open for discussion at a future time.
Thank you. So I'm going to just add the component to me is you guys now have had this is your second or third cycle for budget. This is my first one back after 15 years. So I'm reviewing city service policy. I'm reviewing the strategic planning priorities, the vision, mission, and guiding principles. And I don't have the context without that conversation that you guys would have in the setting of those policies. So I'm going to be at a disadvantage in terms of understanding how we arrived at some of the policies because I don't have the context of conversation. And so I'm absolutely committed to doing whatever I have to do in order to engage myself in the process, engage council in the process, work with administration throughout the process. I'm happy. As far as I'm concerned, it's the one priority I need to ensure that I deliver and develop the leadership for and on behalf of council and administration and the community is the link for our budget process. And so I'm happy to take on or do whatever is necessary to try to engage that process. But I need the support of you guys in order to help deliver that. So if there's a group of, as Councillor Parslow talks about, an engaged session, I need some help from council in there, and I need some help from the business and administration. But I'm good, honestly, with budget timelines and the consultation process, and I think that's our strength in terms of ensuring we do however and whatever necessary to engage the community in the work that the administration have been doing for our fiscal gap as it relates parallel to our budget process. Councillor Schumann?
So are we just gonna vote on this then, like now we've talked about this decision point, are we just?
Through your worship, I think you're gonna have to vote on each one.
We need to have to go to each one, I
Because
think.
conversation about aspirations from a councillor or the mayor has absolutely no instructive value to staff at all. So it's great to hear Councillor Parslow's view of this and Mayor Bumstead's view of this, but it doesn't change the thing we're doing because there's no direction. So
we need to, I agree
council
with-
needs to direct.
We need to provide administration because they've asked, and I guess when I read them, each one of these discussion points have and require the direction and the information back to administration on what council's direction is going to be for each of those decision points. Because they've asked us about a number of them through fair share allocation, for some of those things. So we need to,
Yeah.
I think we need to provide that direction. So perhaps the motion that Councillor Schumann has put on the floor to incorporate them all.
No, that wasn't mine.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was the recommendation.
Oh, the
in
first one,
Yeah.
yes.
Um,
Yeah.
So, rather than going through each one then, if there are particular ones that council wish changed, that might be a time saver, if there are others that are not. I don't know the answer to that.
We could have them.
Okay, let's go, Jim, do you want to lead us through then and take us through them individually so we can
Okay,
provide that?
But I
feedback?
still don't have an answer on the
So-
first one.
Yeah.
I say we vote on each one, like, I'm in favor of keeping the timeline in the budget consultation project process the way it is now.
And I'll second.
I-
Is
Okay,
that a motion?
thank you.
Okay, so I'll second it.
So are we having a new motion without?
Yeah, we haven't got,
Yeah,
we
that's-
got to
that's
vote
right,
on that
that's
other one
right.
first, and maybe we need to defeat that just to get on to
Do we have to
the,
defeat
Okay.
the first one?
we have to defeat that first one just so we can get to the.
Okay, quick,
Yep.
let's defeat the first one.
All, are you ready for the question?
Yes.
All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Sorry, it's defeated. Councillor
I
Malkinson?
move that we consider each one of these decision points one by one.
Seconded, Schumann. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. So discussion point number 1, budget timelines. Councillor Schumann?
I move that we keep the budget timeline and public consultation the same with any increase to the process that you want to maybe take on
Hey, that's great.
specifically.
Thank you. Council
Seconded.
seconded. Councillor McFadden,
Yes.
discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried.
Okay.
Does council agree that the principles in the document are integral in setting the city's annual and long-term budgets? Councillor Malkinson, sorry.
I move that council reaffirm that the principles in the above documents are integral in setting the city's annual and long-term budgets.
Seconded Schumann, discussion? Councillor Parslow?
I find with this one, I'm torn. I mean, one side of me, I guess, and I may be inappropriate to say this, but I go back to my old former role and say, well, gee, you know, it's difficult for staff to interpret the will of council unless there's been specific resolution or there's policy. And what else can they do? But as you know, I think some of the policies have limited use. And staff go to a lot of work in allocating things into these. I'm referring here to the city service policy. And of course, I find myself, I don't agree with some of the policies of council. But that's been debated, and unless there's new resolutions to change policy, staff have no option but to budget accordingly to those directions. So they are important documents, and so I'm reading the word integral as being important in setting the city's annual and long-term budgets, but it doesn't. You will find as we go through the budget process that I will be either bringing policies or some things that might countermand existing policy, and if that passes, then it would require the policy to be changed. So I just want to be upfront and clear about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Does council reaffirm that the only service changes for 2014 will be curbside recycling pending the public consultation, and that no other services will be added or removed in 2014? Moved by Councillor Schumann, seconded by Councillor Malkinson. Discussion?
How do we define service? That's the question.
So, Your Worship, we're talking about providing the same basket of services to your citizens that you currently are, with the possible addition of curbside recycling depending on the outcomes of your public consultation.
If service is understood as services that directly impact our citizens, then I'm comfortable with that. There are some other services that,
No, Your Worship. What you're doing here is providing guidance to staff to bring you back a document. So, I'm not going to try to discern what any counselor thinks is more important than any other thing. I'm saying, am I bringing you back last year's services, or are you making a determination to remove something or add something? I'm not speaking to whether or not you agree, again, with decisions of past council that that was a service that ought to be provided to the citizens. That's a decision you're going to have to make when you have the documents in front of you. Shelley needs to know whether you're whacking something so it comes out and you never see it in the document, or whether you're adding something so it goes in the document so you see it. Otherwise, she's assuming she'll bring you a document that has last year's services, and then you will make a decision.
How I read it.
Okay.
so I will have to vote against this because we've had no discussion about this matter, or opportunity, I guess, in the budget process at this stage to bring forward amendments to budgets that might be in place in 2013. So I'll vote against this.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
So the way I see this is that we're just asking for her to bring it in front of us. We still have the opportunity for that conversation further into the into our deliberations about the budget. So I'm voting in favor of this.
Just for clarity, you're not setting your budget at this meeting.
No, I know.
You're determining what document you
Yes.
get back, what it's based on.
Yes.
At that point, the document is yours to do whatever you wish with.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank
I will
you.
be voting in favour. Thank you, Jim.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Decision point. Does council agree that the most current assessment information received from BC Assessment will be used in drafting and finalizing the 2014 financial plan? Councillor Kenny, Councillor Parslow, discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Does council reaffirm the underlying principles in the revenue disclosure policy? Moved by Councillor Schumann, seconded by Councillor Kenny. Discussion? Can you just give me a quick overview, Jim or Shelley, on the revenue disclosure policy? If that's
You want to do that, or you want me to?
No, I can do it. So a few years back, the province or the ministry mandated that each municipality had to have one of these policies attached to their budget document. So basically what it was is to give some, every municipality has a different way of looking at it, but it basically says in this policy is that that's what your revenues are made up of. This is where you get them from, what conditions are attached, whether they're restricted, whether they're not restricted, but the overriding principle as I was drafting it was you have to look at the integration of those revenues to get the pot of money that you need to provide the services. So, and it has to give council the ability and the flexibility to change that up year to year based on changing conditions. And what I didn't want to include in the document is something so restrictive that you couldn't move in relation to what was happening around you. So I'll give you an example. If you lost a revenue source, but you wanted to maintain services, you would have to increase another revenue source. Okay, to take into consideration what you're planning to do. And so basically that's all the document is. And it just says this is a municipality source of revenues, and this is how they work, and these have these attachments, and these have these characteristics. So that makes sense?
Yep, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Does council agree with the integrated and long-term approach to tax rate setting as an appropriate strategy? Moved by McFadden, seconded by Schumann. Discussion?
I'm not sure I understand that one completely.
So one of the components for me that I'm want to ensure that we have the conversation and discussion about, as depending on the assessment reports back from BC Assessment on the various assessments of what's happened to our assessment by class, and any increases or decreases in those assessments, then our rates and the affected ratios are, then we have to make that determination in terms of, are we going to change the rate for the various assessments if they go up or down to determine our revenue streams for assessment. So if residential assessment goes up by 2% or 3%, do we want to hold the revenue consistent to 2013 levels based on that assessment from last year to this year? Or do we want to decrease the rate in order to offset the increase in assessment? And then how do we manage the ratio between business and residential depending on what happens with those assessment rolls for 2014? How'd I do, CFO? Clear me off if I'm wrong.
Through your worship, pretty good.
Pretty good.
I'd just like to add a little bit there. So what it's trying to get you to think about is historical tax rates were, as they come up to the year that you're looking at. So you're going to consider historical. You're going to consider what's happening in the current year, 2014. But you're also going to consider what's happening in the next 5. So that you're not focusing in on the 1 year. You're gathering as much information as possible in the big picture to make the decision of what you want the current tax rate to be.
Yeah.
If you're only focusing on 1 year, it's a different process than if you're looking at future years.
So I'm absolutely good with the assumption. I want to make sure we have the conversation, and that's what that will be determined based on policy and et cetera.
Further down the road.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. So now I'm going to make sure I made us. Does council agree that the further rate increases, is that the one? Or do we just do that?
That's
now?
it.
Any further rate increases in any service area will be determined based on policy, bylaw, and budget requirements. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Parslow, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Primo wheat. Can somebody read the next one for me?
Does council want to change the use of fair share funding for the 2014 budget?
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Wilbur. Discussion?
Well,
Councillor
the answer to
Parslow?
this question is yes, for me. So I guess I'm voting in favour of the motion.
Sorry, Jim?
And so that being said, it would be, on this topic of what document comes back to you, it would be extremely useful if council gave us a signal about how they would like to change that.
Councillor Parslow?
I am prepared to make a motion after this motion's dealt with that does give specific direction.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Malkinson?
I recall discussions with yourself on your thoughts on how you how you feel about fair share. Maybe I'm just prompting a discussion with you, Dale. What do you think about this?
So, yeah, I absolutely believe that we need to have the conversation, that we need to give administration the direction, the instruction on what it is and how we want to see fair share evolve for us as a community as it relates to our financial picture in the future. So I'm I'm absolutely in favor of wanting to change the use of fair share funding. And I want to have that discussion with council and administration on how we see that evolving in the future, and what parameters, context, and or targets we set in terms of providing that direction and information to our administration folks so they understand that in terms of what we feel we need to do. But I absolutely am in favor of seeing that the use of fair share funding from our budget should be aimed at capital, at infrastructure. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
I'd like to propose that all increases from the 2013 level from fair share be assigned to capital reserve.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that
Seconded by
motion.
Councillor Wilbur. Discussion? Councillor Malkinson?
This one sounds familiar, Your Worship. I do recall it being moved last year, and well, actually, it wasn't. That wasn't the exact motion. Ours was to have, well, the one last year was to have all future increases in fair share to be allocated to capital. And I remember that my objection to it at the time was the worry that service reductions would extend thereof, and it wouldn't be easily identifiable where exactly that would happen, and that I'm all in favor of making the organization relevant and making sure that the services that we provide are in line with our citizens. However, I'm not in favor of setting. And forgive me, Charlie, forgive me, Councillor Parslow will have to forgive me. I'm not certainly saying that his motion here is reflecting this, but I'm not necessarily in favor of setting arbitrary numbers for us to work towards. I think that any goal that we set needs to be in line with the public's wishes. That this whole issue, I think the central issue of the fiscal gap is for us to change ourselves, change our expectations, and utilize community to have a greater ownership and understand that understand the context that all of our services are provided in. That's the it of it for me. I think that it's a law can't change us, we need to change us sort of thing. That said, I'm certain that Charlie could provide me with some figures about expectations of increases in assessment this year, and other changes that are going to happen that could over and above account for any increases that we're going to see in fair share. So I'm sort of on the fence about this resolution that's been proposed.
Thank you. Councillor Wilbur?
I appreciate where Councillor Malkin's coming from, but however, I have to say, I think in 2013 we provided some pretty good service to our community. And moving forward, I think we have to look at, we have some infrastructure issues in front of us, and we need to prepare for that. And one way to do it is to take what we don't have and is coming and put it aside for that. So I will be supporting this motion, and I don't see us affecting services by doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
So on that topic, Your Worship, if it happens that council at this meeting sets two assumptions that when we start doing the detail work, the number work, appear to be in conflict with one another. So for instance, a motion regarding allocation of fair share and your motion that services are being maintained. Then we'll bring you a range of options on how to potentially address that gap. We won't know until we go to the details. And on the specific resolution, as you know, the thrust of the fiscal gap work so far has been to tell you that into the future you're going to have to spend more on capital. And unless you're willing to raise more, you're going to have to spend less on program spending to make that happen. That's a future-looking decision, as is the discussion you had about ultimate decisions about fair share over the course of time. Those are forward-looking decisions. This request is about the 2014 budget, and so Councillor Parslow's motion is aimed at the 2014 budget, which is the information staff needs going forward.
So, and I'm going to weigh in because for me, we have budget timelines and consultation. We have now some parameters around policy that are going to set and help guide administration. Now we've set fair share as saying any new revenues associated with, is it 5% or 7%, is going to capital. We have new revenue coming from increased in assessments.
Yeah.
So those are all from my perspective here, this is all about administration having now some parameters around saying service expectations, what are we doing with new revenue, how are we going to manage what we're doing with fair share, and for the future. And then for us, it's critical for us to then set that fiscal gap, in my opinion, discussion in early 2014, so we can begin that conversation for service implications that all of our communities, not about us, it's about the citizens out there that need to have that. We need to have that conversation with them. So I really think it's an important topic, and I think it's important information for administration to be able to understand what it is that we see in terms of those revenue streams, of where they're coming from and where do we want them allocated. Councillor Barzil.
Thank you. I think what Jim just said is very important for me. And in answer to your questions, I have a number of ideas, and if council majority or unanimously supports them, they will be tested. But our CAO and CFO will give us the implications of that, and we then may want to revisit that. One of the things I admire is that Jim will tell us boldly, and
Where no man
we
has gone
respect
before.
him and our CFO, and we will listen. We may not agree, and we may choose to ignore the advice, right, and the implications. But it will be a dynamic process, I guarantee. It will be a two-way process, and I think we're blessed in having that potential here for some honest discussion. But some things you present as a principle, and if that principle doesn't work for you, then you have to revisit that principle. But I am firmly thinking 20 years down the road. I want the community not to be paying for decisions that we avoided and neglected to make. I want this community to be a vital community that's affordable with good infrastructure. I'm thinking here of my grandchildren, okay? I'm thinking of maybe for yourself, because I may be long gone by then. But I am, and I think we have to move the step. Our staff has shared that there's a fiscal gap issue. The capital asset work clearly shows that we need money for capital. We've got some challenges with sewer issues and water issues. We've got some challenges about completing some projects that we currently have underway. We're going to need a lot of money. And if staff says to me in a report we've just dealt with that we need to consider budgeting at least 5.9 million, regardless of whether our long-term goal becomes what they're doing in other municipalities or we do our own thing, and I respect either way.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to start tightening the belt here around a few things, and so that, and I think in that sense, I'm not at odds with staff at all in that sense, but how we get there, yeah, we'll explore that and we'll have some good discussions. This is just, as correctly, this is not from here for now ever. That might be, but this resolution is for 2014 budget.
Thank you, Councillor Barzil. Councillor Malkinson?
I don't disagree with much of what you just said, Councillor Parslow. That's the frame of mind that I think all of us should have. Forward looking into the future and considering everybody involved when we make a decision, and thinking about 20 years down the road. That certainly strongly resonates with me, and not for selfish reasons either. We have the opportunity to do something unprecedented here. The approach that has been identified and the principles that surround it are so valuable to me, and I think that it's something that we can't violate and we must stay true to as we work towards that end. What Jim has spoken about with contravening or conflicting direction extending out of the resolution coming that it would be brought back to council, that certainly settles my mind, and I think that I could support this resolution. Hearing that, that's very comforting.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Decision point, does council agree with the present allocations of the various grants? Councillor Kenny, Councillor Parslow, discussion, all in favor, opposed, carried. Other revenues, gaming, franchise, miscellaneous, does council agree with the present allocations? Councillor Parslow, Councillor Schumann, discussion, all those in favor, opposed, it's carried. Carry forward surplus, I'm just trying to get to it. Does council agree that any unused surplus will be carried forward and used as a funding source for the 2014 plan? Councillor Malkinson, Councillor Kenny, discussion, Councillor Parslow.
Yes, I hate to do this because I would have wanted desperately to have talked to our staff about this. But I'm going to propose an amendment. No, it would not an amendment. I'm going to speak against this. But again, this is in the spirit of the fact that the implications of it, I don't know. It's just a matter of preference for me. I would rather have that unrestricted surplus be set aside into the capital reserve. We budget not using this surplus. We see this surplus as something that we can apply to finish in. I'm just making this, this isn't part of any proposed motion, but let's say the Calvin Crook Centre or some part of the sewage project, some capital project. But that's, again, I'm saying this not knowing the implications of it, but I just don't think it's a habit that of just using unused surplus, because it can tend to inflate operating expenditures. And I tend to want to treat it as some fortuitous money that we have that we can set aside for specific targets. And you know, I have some ideas how this money might be used, and it's for an unfinished project. But I'm jumping ahead of myself, so I'm voting against this. I'd like to see us think of other ways we can use this money, but again, under strong advisement from staff about the implications.
Jim?
Okay, so through your worship, the assumption doesn't say that it will not go to capital. It simply says it'll be carried forward to the 2014 budget where it's available for either capital or operational. I'd be a little bit worried that you could create a use it or lose it philosophy amongst the departments, which we don't have at the moment. At the moment, the departments function knowing that their goal is to come in under budget, and they won't be, quote, penalized for coming in way under budget because of timing issues, for instance. That the money's potentially available for work that didn't get completed on an arbitrary date, which is December 31st. So one of the issues amongst communities that have a designated destination for surplus carry forward is that you create a perverse incentive to spend the money in the given calendar year, which I'd hate to see. So I think we could give that some thought, but I have no problem if council issues a direction that so far as possible the carry forward surplus goes to capital. That's I think that's a good move into the future.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, thanks again, Jim, because you reminded me of some things there that I experienced and worked to offset as well. I'm wondering if there's this topic can be perhaps be revisited. I know I'm just looking for capital money to finish some projects and so on here as well, but I don't want the culture that happens so often of spend it because you're going to lose it. I mean, obviously, I personally am very open if there's some work that couldn't be completed that was budgeted for, it could be considered to be an appropriated surplus. But I'm just saying if there is, I'd hate to be used to...
We'll target this one along the side then and maybe have some conversation about it.
Yeah, through your worship, if the decision, this is your last decision point, and if it carries as it is, then what I'm taking out of here is there are really three things that you would wish to talk about in more detail. One would be proposals around additional consultation on how you might better broadcast your budget priorities to the community so as to elicit better feedback. That you particularly want to look at the implications of adjusting property tax rates by the amount of market assessment increase, and that you would like to have a broader discussion about carry forward surplus and how it's used. So those would be three things. And there is a specific direction saying the current involvement of fair share funding in operational matters will not be increased this year.
Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, so back to what Charlie was saying, I think we could accept this assumption and then talk about it further into the budget consultation with regards to where we allocate surplus to. Couldn't we?
Yeah, I think we do.
Charlie.
If I can say, it's very important to me. I want to maintain a good relationship with our CFO. That we don't. Not that there's any chance. I've only been funny here. That she doesn't go ahead and go ahead and do a lot of work, and then suddenly we pull the rug from underneath her and generate more work for her unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Yet, what Councillor Schumann said is, in my mind, very reasonable as well. So I'm torn between giving direction and in future dialogue. What gives staff the better comfort level here? Is there a way of dealing with this dichotomy in my mind?
Through your worship, I think the way Jim summed it up is pretty directive, right? As you're putting the information together, these are the three things that we are going to give you information on. And consider as the numbers are coming together and they're integrated and they're interconnected, and I'm going to say to myself, okay, what about this and what about that and what about this as we're rolling through it. So you're going to get that information through the process. Whether you want it or whether you don't want it, it's going to come out because you go through these steps.
By way of alternatives. So
yes.
The budget document's going to have alternatives about additional consultation. It's going to have alternatives about the rates that it may not have had, because probably it would only have had holding the rates at the current level. It's going to have alternatives about the use of carry forward surplus, and it's not going to have one more penny of fair share go to operational than did last year. If that's the extent of your direction at the moment.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's just vote on this one.
Yeah, just I have there's some additional matters in this document that I want to raise as motions, but from the point of view of the highlighted things, no, I'm fine.
So
Are you ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
So
Councillor
we're
Schumann?
going to carry on with this item.
I have some additional.
Could we just vary the agenda quickly to deal with 7.4 so that people in the gallery can go sell their calves?
Sure.
Do we need a,
Nope.
do I need a motion or anything?
Chair maintains the prerogative to amend the agenda when required, so you go ahead.
All right. No, I don't have it up.
Is it 7-4?
7-4.
You want me to read it out, Your Worship?
Yes.
Sure.
That report number 13-243 from the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development regarding the temporary use permit 13-02 for 300 Highway 2 be received, and further that Council approve the issuance of temporary use permit number 13-02 for cattle holding and feeding outside the Lakota Agriplex at 300 Highway 2 for a period of 1 year, and further that the lease agreement beginning on October 21st, 2013 and ending on September 30th, 2014, attached to this report between the City and the Mile Zero Roping Club and the Peace River Cutting Horse Association be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Malkinson, seconded McFadden. All discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you. Thank you.
I was opposed, Your Worship.
Good call, Sean.
I was hoping that the cows would stay in our business for a little while longer, so that's why I was doing that.
Councillor Malkinson is asking you note that he was opposed?
I'm sorry.
I was opposed, yeah.
Recorded. Thank you.
Sort of a
Back
downer.
to item number 7-2. Jim?
Your Worship, I just have to comment that what you've just seen there is why you don't get the attendance and concern you wish you got on your budget consultation. Nobody really enjoys watching the sausages be made. They're concerned about their issues, in this case, the temporary housing of yearling cattle. But they're not necessarily willing to devote a morning to watching you guys make the budget sausage. And that's, in a nutshell, why you don't get much turnout at your budget consultation. People are interested more in the micro impacts than the macro picture. It's just something that we're going to have to turn around if
That's
there's going to
right.
be any
That's
success
right.
in the fiscal gap discussion.
Yeah, the whole aspect of communication and engagement is really a difficult one, and for me, the fiscal gap isn't about fiscal, it's about engaging the community in the conversation and discussion about how and what we set the future of our community up in terms of how and what we do, and it is about community and communication, and so.
It's
you're
all
right,
community.
it's
It's all community.
It's a big puzzle. So we have, Councillor Parslow, you said you had something?
Yeah. Well, I'm in the spirit of giving direction to staff. And again, thank you for this document, Shelley. I think you covered all things and were quite explicit in that. And so I want to make a motion or two here for discussion.
Okay.
Because I want to, my goal, my hope is that I'll be able to support the operating budget when we, rather than last year when I couldn't support it. So I want to move that there be no resourcing of a deputy CAO position, 2 floater firefighters, and an emergency program coordinator provided in the 2014 budget.
Seconded Malkinson.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Mhm. Just talking. Sorry.
Councillor
I'll second it to
Wilbur?
put on the table. for
Discussion,
sure.
Councillor Malkinson.
I am, although I understand the two positions in the fire department and the deputy CAO position not being funded last year, council, although I was on the losing side at that council meeting, council did vote to approve the funding for an emergency manager this year, did they not?
No.
No.
What?
No, that it be brought
Put it into
forward.
budget consultation, but shouldn't that be done
okay.
in budget consultation? Like, I don't like this.
These, they were, I think that Charlie's initiation of this conversation is in order. I think that this is the preliminary discussion, and if there is a consensus among council about this matter preliminarily, then just identifying it and getting it out of the way on those grounds at the start is the place to do it.
So direction to council, direction to administration.
It's, if those positions are unacceptable to council, you know it now. Better Shelley doesn't put them in the budget for removal. That's the.
Further discussion? Wilbur, Councillor Wilbur?
I second the motion on the table, but I think I do agree with Councillor Parcel that they would be nice to have, but I think we have some really huge issues in front of us, and I think we need to take care of them before we start putting funding towards these other things in this next budget. I think we have to do some housekeeping before we put money out there for positions that we don't have at the moment. So that's why I'm going to support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny?
I would like to hear some rationale on those positions in our budget discussions before putting
Yeah.
before eliminating them from the budget. I'd like to see the reasons why we need those positions and some background information rather than just saying, let's not do it before we have the background.
Yep.
I think that's a budget discussion.
Councillor Malkinson?
If Councillor Kenny has those concerns, then I believe that's reason enough for us to have that dialogue in the future. So I think that to that end, that I wouldn't support this resolution, not indicative of any of my thoughts currently, but just on the basis of discussing it further in the future.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Excuse me.
Sorry.
I just, what are we,
We're voting on Charlie's motion.
Charlie's motion that
Charlie's
we
motion.
will not include those positions for budget discussion.
okay, so we're voting on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
I have one other matter, if I may.
Cheryl, myself, and Sue.
Kenny?
This is a procedural thing. Again, in the spirit that I think we need to work at looking at ways we can rationalize why we have certain things in our budget and seeing if we do wish to continue with those things and whether we can therefore put that money, if we don't continue those things, into capital. That's my... So I'll make the motion, then I'll speak to it. I'm moving that a committee be formed consisting of the mayor, 2 members of council appointed by the mayor, and staff, okay, Julie? Okay, to review on a line-by-line basis the 2013 budget with the goal of reaching consensus on a set of proposed cuts. For the 2014 budget. So I repeat the entire thing again, see if anyone will second it. That a committee be formed consisting of the mayor and 2 members of council appointed by the mayor and staff to review on a line-by-line basis the 2013 budget with the goal of reaching consensus on a set of proposed cuts for the 2014 budget. If there's a second, I would like to speak to the
Thank you.
motion.
Seconded,
What the
Councillor
heck?
Wilbur. Discussion, Councillor Malkinson.
Well, despite, I know that Charlie moved the motion, he might want to speak to it, and I'll be eager to hear what his thoughts are, but I believe that this is exactly what I was voicing opposition to earlier in this item here, 7.2. I do not believe in us cutting for the sake of cutting. I believe in us cutting in line with a vision and with consultation with the community and according to the whole series of objectives that we have outlined for the community. It's not, we're not trying to remove dollars from the organization. We're trying to make sure that the organization is sustainable far into the future and make sure that it's relevant for everybody today. So I certainly can't support a committee dedicated to cutting for the sake of cutting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Parslow.
Thank you. The intention is to reallocate, to make cuts, reallocate to capital. That's my overall philosophy. Now, you know, my preferred option is that we all do this. But I put it forward because, or it can be amended to be all, but I do believe that there is, as some people call it, some issues in some components to our budget that I think we need to say, do we really need to do this? Given that we have great need for capital money, do we really need to do that? I don't wish to pinpoint specific ones right now, unless because everyone may have their own ones. But I'm just saying, I found it very valuable when our CFO provided some backup sheets to support the budget. And it really reinforced my support for some items. Some things, you know, I really say, I just can't buy the fact that we have da-da-da. These are small items, but they all add up to a fair amount of money. And I'm sorry if it came across, I should have perhaps put that in the motion, to move from operating to capital. That's the intention, is not to reduce the bottom line. It's just a matter of reallocation. So I just wonder if to reallocate should appear in the motion, if that's suitable to the second.
Councillor Wilbur?
I'm just wondering if Councillor Parzel's only thing is that these recommendations then would come forward through this
To
budget
council,
process
yeah.
and then to the community as well, or just to council?
To council.
To council, all right,
It's
thank you.
council's decision, but if people can afford the time, because this will take some time, you know what I mean? It's that's why I thought a committee, but my preference is everyone.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
Yeah, so I don't like that at all. I think that the time to be having those conversations is in the lead up to, in the budgeting process. Going through the budget and discovering things that you might want to reallocate or whatever is, to me, in the budget process. Like, I don't like the idea of the mayor and 2 councillors sitting in there coming up with the things that they think should be reallocated. I think that's a job for all of us in our budget process. I'm voting against it.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Wilbur?
Can it be amended to be all of council?
No. Can it be?
Yes, I'm asking to amend it to
And
be
that would
all
be,
of council.
that wouldn't be a committee.
So
You
now
can't
we're
have a
just gonna
committee with
have
less
a
than.
meeting.
Double the meetings?
Well, it might be double the meetings, but the bottom line is, it's putting in the work. So we're here to put in the work, let's put in the work. That's what our community has put us here for.
Your
Councillor
worship.
Malkinson, shoot.
I'm sure Jim can lead off just as adequately as I can, but I don't believe you can have a committee of 7 councillors. Why don't I'm really interested to hear what our administrator has to say about this.
Jim?
Okay, just to refresh, I absolutely guarantee you that arbitrary cuts are not going to get you towards sustainability.
Boom.
Guarantee that. All the documentation, all of the academic work that's been done on this, all of the recommendations you've seen, arbitrary cuts will not in any way predict future sustainability. But if you feel a need for a certain amount of money this year, I don't know what that amount of money is because we've done none of the work to tell you what that amount of money is. But if you've got a figure in mind, you can work towards arbitrary cuts. But that has nothing to do with the fiscal gap. In fact, in my opinion, when you cut services for people who haven't been informed and engaged, you're setting yourself up for failure. All of the academic work tells you what you're about to embark on is in fact going to work against a goal of future fiscal sustainability, although it might work towards short-term objectives if that's what is applied. Firstly. Secondly, the citizens elected every one of you, not the mayor and his 2 favored councillors, so I really think it's bad democracy to have this work done by a subcommittee. Thirdly, I would expect that Councillor Parzel already has in mind 4 or 5 items Councillor Wilbur may have in mind 4 or 5 items. A far better use of your time is to talk about the 4 or 5 items as a whole council that any councillor might have. Because if you go through line items, what's going to happen is a department person is going to be sitting there, council is going to be sitting there, the department person is going to tell you what it costs to paint lines and how many lines get painted with this line item. And council has no expertise to talk about how much paint's needed, how many man hours are needed, what the cost of paint. It's a wasted discussion. You sit there for 5 minutes, you go over line painting, nothing's been advanced. Council just hasn't got the expertise to be participating. You either trust your staff to have brought you the cost of painting lines or you don't. I think you're setting yourself up through this motion for a lot of effort that's really targeted at 4 or 5 items each councillor has in their head. And the 4 or 5 items are a great thing to talk about. The individual line items are their background noise. It's my opinion.
Councillor Wilbur?
I actually don't have 4 or 5 items in my head. I would like to look at all of them, but I think part of where my concern is that in going forward in the process, it's been questioned in the past, well, when did we vote for that? Well, you voted for it in the budget. So unless you look at it line by line, you don't actually know exactly what you're voting on. So I don't have 4 or 5 items, and I don't want to waste my time talking about how much it costs to paint the lines on the road, but I do want to know that when I vote for a portion of that budget, I'm very clear on what I'm voting for, so I don't ask down the road, when did we vote to put that through? Well, it was in the budget. I don't want to have that discussion again.
Councillor McFadden?
So I'm just what I hear management or staff saying is that this really wouldn't assist them in their development of a budget for helping us develop a 2014 budget by revisiting the 2013 budget. Is that what you're saying, over Jim?
So there are thousands of line items.
Yeah.
And so each one of them is it takes the department heads solid work from the date of these budget assumptions to the first budget meeting with council, working with Shelley and internally in their departments, all the time they have in order to get those line items ready for you to look at. So where is the time coming to review the 2000, and again, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of that? Because Councillor Wilbur's purpose is not Councillor Parslow's purpose. If the purpose is to understand the 2014 budget so that you can explain to somebody why it costs, I don't know, $400 to paint lines, that's a process around the 2014 budget. Councillor Parslow is talking about going over the 2013 budget to say, it looks to me like you spent too much on painting lines last year. And then our staff person is going to say, no, we spent what we had to spend. Would you like to paint less lines? Exactly how is that conversation advancing us towards addressing the fiscal gap? What is the urgent need for the 2014 budget for arbitrary cuts? What dollar figure do we need? What are we after? Because if you tell me what you're after, I can bring you a bunch of options to get that done. To be perfectly frank with you, this sounds like the platform of one of the other candidates for mayor rather than your own.
Councillor Schumann?
And we get to those discussions in our budget process, not on our assumptions.
At any level you wish in the budget process.
So first of all, I'm going to intervene because my platform doesn't have any bearing on what I'm doing here today and attempting to lead council and the community in terms of where we're going. And so I absolutely am all in favor of having information, communication, and engagement with people in understanding the decisions that we make as we move forward on behalf of the people that we represent in our community. And so however people agree to do that, or however people feel confident, that's the issue. How do we feel confident, or how do each of us individually feel our role is in understanding the material and the information as we're making decisions around that. And so that's, to me, the conversation that we should have and we want to have, because it helps guide us at the end of the day when administration bring us a budget that we feel confident accurately reflects the needs of our role in providing those services efficiently, cost-effectively on behalf of the residents.
Let's vote on this.
Just,
So Shelley, sorry.
Oh, I'm just wondering then if.
Sorry,
it-
Shelley, it was Shelley Wolf. Then I'll go
Shelley's
Shelley
got
Wilbur, then I'll
lots she
go.
wants to say.
No, I just want to provide some context here for you people sitting at the table. You have a $60 million budget.
Yes.
That's really big dollars. And so we talk about structure, we talk about systems, we talk about principles and policy, and that's where we're trying to keep the decision makers at the table to make those really important decisions. And then you actually have technical staff that bring the detail. So if you want some detail on something that you think you may want to reallocate, we can do that, but it does take staff resource to go that direction. So when you go into the detail, you're going to take staff resource away from the big stuff that needs to be decided. We did a little bit of that last year, and it takes time. We have staff issues, so of course, where do you want to redirect your time, into the big stuff or the small stuff? But you need to trust the staff that the staff will get you the information that you require to make the decision. And I'm not sure that one line item is a good use of a CFO's time, right? If you don't have technical staff to provide it, I have to provide it. So there's a dollar cost to reallocating resources to detail. And I just want to remind you about that, because we're looking forward into the 5 years, and we're talking about 60 million and up. So.
Thank you. Shaylee? Councillor Wilbur, sorry.
I'm just wondering, in order to be inclusive, if any councillor has concerns, if it wouldn't be appropriate to hold a special meeting of council so that we can look through it, and if there are concerns, we can bring them forward and shortlist those concerns and give them to staff so that we can find out their purpose, what that would mean, rather than allocating huge dollars to this whole process. I'm thinking Councillor Parslo's thinking of following the kind of the 2013 budget and not increasing it, right? And so I'm only assuming that, so correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Parslow, but which I tend to agree with. I don't want to add expenses to our budget. So I'm just wondering if a special meeting of council is not in order, rather than this committee to bring forward any concerns that we have and shortlist it.
Councillor Malkinson?
Well, she looks a little more interested than I.
Well, I'll do it in order.
All right. I really appreciate what's been said here by everybody today. I, above all, appreciate the seriousness and engagement and participation from each of the members and the staff here as well. All are concerned and very invested in the budget process, and it's been very robust. Some of the objectives that have been identified by the proposed action, some of the implied and some of the underlying objectives as well, I believe can be achieved through the budget process that we have in place right now. See, if we begin to speak about a special meeting of council to speak along the lines that Councillor Parslow has proposed, I quite frankly do not see the distinction between that and any three of our regular budget meetings. It's and I ask for clarification on that, but I do believe that we can get there. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McFadden?
No, thank you.
Councillor Wilbur?
Cheryl.
Sorry, Councillor Schumann?
Schumann.
I'll get it straight one day.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments, because I figure we don't need a special meeting, we don't need a special committee. We've got a whole bunch of meetings that we're gonna have in this budget consultation, or this budget process. We can get it done there if, you know, and about putting in the time, like, we will be putting in the time in those budget meetings. We got our new mayor, he's gonna have to catch up on everything. I expect they're gonna be marathons, and why add to it? We can do all of this then.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny?
I don't even know where to begin. I have complete faith in what staff has rolled out for us today in their recommendations and all the decision policies that we went through, and I wouldn't want to be in their seat right now, because I don't know, I think we've done them a little bit of a disservice. I don't know. If I was in their seat, I would be a little I'd be a little upset. You know, we have our roles as council, and I echo all the concerns of all council. Yeah, I would love to have no debt at all with our city, and it'd be really easy. It's just like your home budget, you know, where if you don't have the money to do this, then you don't spend it, and you tuck it away, and that's great. But my budget isn't 60 million, so it's a little easier to do. And I think that we should go through, well, I know we should go through the budget processes that we go, and as Councillor Malcolmson had said, I agree, the processes are there. And you know, if we see the urgency or recommendations from staff through their recommendations, and they see that there's an urgency that we have to slash and burn and cut like right away, then of course we're going to pay attention to that. But I'm not seeing that right now, and the fiscal gap is education on how we communicate to the community and bring the community into the conversation of services and our future, and how that's all going to be, not on cutting right now. But I understand Councillor Parslow, you know, where he's going, and takes his role very, very seriously, and takes you know, what he hears in the community very seriously, as we all do. But we do have to be real, and there is a process, and we do have, you know, competent people here. And I didn't go to school to be a CA, so I'm going to trust the person that has those capabilities and can give us recommendations.
Thank you. Discussion?
Just
Councillor
want to speak
Malkinson?
one last time, Your Worship, without echoing some of the points that have already been made. There's one that I need to just reiterate one final time, and that's just the importance of us to stick to the principles that have been outlined in this fiscal gap work that Council has recognized. We need to maintain the course. We need to not lose sight of our end objective when completing this work, and all of our actions should fit in to this objective that we've set for ourselves, and we should guide ourselves to that end. And I am, just when coming back to the consideration of the question that's on the floor right now, and it's that's what we can't lose sight of, I believe. You know, this I've said it once before this meeting, but you know, the principle of a law can't change us, we need to change us. That's the most that sums it up for myself. Thank you.
And we're not setting a law, we're setting direction.
Yes, but
So, any further discussion? Councillor Parslow? You look
Well,
like
a lot
you
of
wanna say
things
one
have been
last thing.
said and extrapolations made. It's just a bit mind-boggling. But I referenced the 2013 budget because all the paperwork's there. You're new in your role. It would be good for you to go through the budget line by line. If we are, my notion with, you know, I mean, I don't think I've ever made any questions about the amount of white paint that's bought and things like that in any of my discussions with administration.
Yellow paint.
Yellow paint is it? I'm colorblind, I'm sorry. But there are some things, I just think we need to just get a little focused. There are many statements made, you know, oh, I didn't know that was in the budget. No, I'm not involved in, will never want to be involved in micromanagement about many things, but I do think some things as it relates to how we do some of our work. I mean, for instance, one of the things just to illustrate, I said I didn't want to get pushed into some illustrations, but let's just choose one. I would really question if we're trying to look at operating budgets and whether we can put more money into capital and finding money. I would really question the attendance at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference. Now, they're small items. Yeah, sure, but you add them up, and I bet you we could find a good amount of money that could help us deal with some major capital issues. No, I don't think, Councillor Kenny, that the CAO or CFO, no, I don't admire them tremendously and have a lot of faith. It's just that I think I have a responsibility to the public to know what is in the budget, and I feel quite confident in that. But it only came about as a result of some line-by-line reviews, the backup materials, but I do question if we're going to ask the public to share in possibly reviewing how we operate, we should take care of our own business and not be seen to be doing things that are unnecessary. And I certainly, yes, there are a few items that I think are unnecessary, some practices, nothing to do with the operational staff. It's got a lot to do with council. And my motion here is intended to facilitate your orientation, but also to respectful of council staff. But I strongly believe it should be all of council. I don't believe in going through two budget processes. One, of course, I was new and just observed primarily that staff does a great job of presenting a lot of information, but there's some things that we need to say, no, we don't really think we should in these times of finding some. It's just like similar to the mayor's vehicle, that sort of topic. So that's where I come from, and I didn't want to. I thought there was some stuff in the 2013 budget which would naturally, unless we give direction to staff not to do, will be carried forward because we haven't given any direction. So I know that I have no intention of going to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference in Niagara Falls based upon attendance at one that was held in Vancouver. I just don't see the relevance of it. And there's a budget item, and it's in that sort of spirit. But certainly, if staff say they want so many gallons or liters of yellow paint, I have absolute faith in the staff.
Thank you. So everybody's had a good go at this, and appreciate the passion that folks have about the financial implications for our community and the direction and the implications that we have and our responsibilities and accountabilities as a board. I can assure you, as the new mayor, I got a passion for the finances. And I'm absolutely going to be involved in that budget deliberations and preparations in a vigorous, enthusiastic manner. And hopefully then be able to ensure that we have and lead council through that process with administration. So thank you. You ready for the question?
Maybe we need it refreshed. It's
Yeah.
been a long time.
I kind of got it. No, I'm kidding.
Somebody might not.
That a committee be formed involving the mayor, two councillors appointed by the mayor and staff to view a line-by-line of the 2013 budget with a goal of reaching consensus on a set of proposed cuts for the 2014 budget.
Ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. Thank you.
That was amazing. That was the
Good
best
discussion.
conversation we've had
Thank
as
you.
a council, I think.
And accomplished nothing.
That's right.
Yeah, it did.
We
It was very
accomplished
good.
a lot.
We did, I think.
Anytime we have conversation, it's good. Report number 7.3, we have the Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development on the 21st Street subdivision, unresolved issues. Report number 13241. Councillor Parslow?
I'm wondering if this matter, aren't there some matters, Councillor Wilbur, that you think should be discussed, or have you resolved those matters?
I did get some emails back, but there are some other questions I would like to ask with regards to
So
the
I'm not
original
just
bonds.
being a bit of a help. She seemed to be distracted there. That
Sure.
she did talk to me about that, and I just wondered if she had had a chance to talk to staff about the justification for going in camera, and how if that is still the case.
Through you to staff, I did email Jim and ask some questions, and I don't know if those questions are relevant enough to move it to closed. It has to do with the original bond taken at construction of the development and the difference in what it is now. So I'd like to have a frank discussion actually about that. I don't want to leave these people, for lack of better words, hanging.
Yeah. So do we need to, Jim, can you answer whether we need to move this in camera because of the bond?
Well, through your
Or
worship,
closed?
most of it you couldn't move to closed, but item 8, which is about bonds generally, but speaks to this bond in particular. The items around this bond in particular could be appropriately moved to closed.
Okay,
I move that this item be placed in closed section of the meeting.
thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second
Councillor
that.
Wilbur,
Thank you.
discussion?
Thank you, Chairman.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 7.5, report number 13246, Southeast Mile Zero Park Society lease and operating agreement. Councillor Parslow?
Okay, I'm just flipping forward, thinking here as colours of paint as I'm doing that. So let's have a look.
There's a whole story with that paint.
Is there?
I'll tell you later.
Okay, I can just imagine.
Oh, I know.
Okay. I'm pleased to make this motion, and I must, before I do this, say that the Mile Zero Park Society is deeply indebted to the work of our corporate officer, Brenda Ginter, and wanted me to say that publicly. She was a great help. I move that report number 13-246 from the Director of Corporate Administration of the Mile Zero Park Society operating a lease agreement be received. Further, that the agreement beginning on November the 5th, 2013 between the City and the Mile Zero Park Society to manage and operate the Pioneer Village, the Mile Zero Campsite, the Dawson Creek Bike Park and Rotary Lake be approved for a 5-year term with the option to renew for an additional 5-year term.
Seconded by Councillor Schumann. Discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Item 7.7, we have the report number 13240, the 2014 acting mayor schedule.
7-6.
Sorry?
7-6.
7.6. I'm sorry, I missed 7.6. 13244, Young Life fundraiser. Councillor Wilbur?
I'll make the motion that report number 13-244 from the Deputy Director of Community Services regarding Young Life fundraiser be received. Further, that council deny the request for free Canbork Aquatic Center swim passes as the request does not meet the current city user fees and charges policy definition of public benefit.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Parslow. Discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Now 7.7, report 13240, the 2014 acting mayor schedule. Councillor McFadden.
Move that report number 13-240 from the Deputy Director of Corporate Administration regarding the 2014 acting mayor schedule be received, and further that the acting mayor schedule for 2014 be approved as presented.
Seconded. Councillor Malkinson. I just had one question. With the election next year in October, September, October, do we set it till then? The end of that, or do we set it for the whole year?
Through your worship, the legislation requires you to set it for the year.
The entire year.
And of course, if the people named in the policy no longer are on council, then the new council has to make a
Accepted.
change.
Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Parks Manager, report number 13242, the 1716 90th Avenue tree mitigation issue. Councillor Malkinson?
I move that this report from our Parks Manager and Horticulturalist regarding 1716 90th Avenue tree mitigation be received, and further that staff work with the property owner in the construction process to save and protect the trees, to alleviate the concern with the roots on the lawn with graduated addition of topsoil and seed, and to remedy the roots in the dirt floor basement through root pruning, and further that the cost of the recommended remediation efforts be made at the owner's expense.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Kenny, discussion? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 8, bylaws. 8.1, we have the City of Dawson Creek Permissive Tax Exemption Bylaw number 4189, 2013. Councillor Parslow?
I'd like to move the adoption of that bylaw.
Moved by Councillor Parslow, seconded by Councillor Malkinson. Discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 8.2, City of Dawson Creek Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 4188. Councillor Wilbur?
I'd like to make a motion that it be approved.
Thank you. Seconded Councillor Schumann. Discussion? All those in favor?
I was waiting for getting ready for the question.
Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 9 for the mayor's business. So quickly, I'm just touch on a number of things that we've had over the last couple of weeks. Attended the 3rd anniversary of the Cassie Now Better at Home, and they had a welcome reception and a bit of a celebration, so I attended on behalf of Mayor and Council, offered our congratulations to them. I attended a meeting organized by School District 59 and the school, South Peace, Dawson Creek Secondary, I guess it is now. South Peace Secondary is, I always knew it by, are working on developing a process for, we've always looked at the kids in grade 10, 11, and 12 as being that age where they start to make decisions on their future, either choices that they intend to make with respect to the arts or academic or trades. And so now they're really looking at moving that down and starting that process with the students in earlier at grade 8s. And so they had a meeting with some of the business community and the ITA, the Industrial Trades Association representative. And it was very interesting in terms of the conversation and discussions that they're starting to engage in with trying to encourage and ensure that kids make the connection at an appropriate age and level. And they were feeling that by leaving them sometimes to grades 15, 16, 17, that they were sometimes losing those kids from making choices and decisions. And so they're really looking at those options and opportunities. It was very, very good conversation, discussion, and information. And so I look forward to being involved in that kind of as the future of it unfolding. Sat in on a teleconference, information teleconference with Shaylee and Matt, the energy manager, on the curbside recycling information. And it was, again, for me, just getting exposed to that and understanding the direction that council have started to look at and consider as that information around curbside recycling was very, very helpful for me. We attended the bus rodeo with Transit a week and a half ago, and a number of members of council were there along with the MLA and the media, and got a look at the new buses, the new transit buses that are coming into the community, and got the opportunity to compete in the bus rodeo with the MLA and Summit Council. It was a lot of fun, and having never ever drove a bus before or a large vehicle before, I did pretty good. But I got second. I got second to the MLA. But it was really, really informative. I liked the new buses, and the efficiencies that they're gonna bring to our community and a new look, and I think they're welcome.
Did they say when they were gonna be on the road? Like, I noticed the old ones are still driving around.
Yeah, I think it's a transition over the next coming months, but I'm not exactly sure that I was told when that
I forgot
exactly
to
is
ask
coming.
them.
Yeah. I attended a tour with Encana and called the Cut Bank Tour about a week ago with they were put on by Encana. They had a number of their folks from Calgary here with people represented the Oil and Gas Commission, Forest Lands, Natural Resources, Ministry of Transportation and Highways, and again, it was just further information. We got to see the water hub that Encana are building out in Farmington, using and going to be utilizing the saline solution or saline water as a different option for them in terms of their operating needs in the future, and they're putting in a pipeline system attached to the flow lines and pipelines for their gas to circulate that water out into the field, utilizing it for the industrial uses, and then bring it back into the hub to reuse it in the future. And so it's really, I look at it as a very positive for the community in terms of for the industry and industry finding an option and a solution to their operational needs in the future. And certainly I've talked about this and everything I've heard, and I'm still pleading early in this job because it's only been a month, but the indications from all of industry that this is going to be a busy area in the coming years for our community. And I used to think about we need to be proactive and constructive and positive about ensuring that the city benefits from this, and now everything I hear says we need to be deliberate, specific, and focused about how and what we do to manage what's coming at us. I don't think it's a question of trying to attract it or engage it or encourage it. I think it's coming. We just got to be very, very conscious about what it is and how we interact with that. Now, I attended last week to the coal forum in Tumbler Ridge. It was on last Wednesday and Thursday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, I guess. I was able to go out on one day and sat in on a couple of information sessions and did a tour of one of the mines. The Walter Energy put on a tour of one of their mines. And you hear about coal mines and you hear about mining activity in Tumbler Ridge and Hudson Hope and Chetwynd and all of that stuff. But for the first time to ever experience it, being in the actual on location in a mine was pretty impressive to see the magnitude of what takes place. And so it was very informative from my perspective. So that was about a week and a half. Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Malkinson?
Your Worship, were there any updates that could be shared about the state of the MMBC process right now?
So they're just still going through they were putting together and finalizing the conditions and specifications around the contracts, and they'll be getting that out to us in the very near future, was my understanding, and Matt sat in on it. And so we will then, once we have that, we understand the implications to us as our community and for the homeowners, and then be able to roll out that consultation process with the community. And they were also trying to have the conversation and discussion with the other members in the Peace Liard Regional District as well as the Northern Rockies, because a number of the communities have decided not to pursue the partnership and take the early incentives that were offered on behalf of MMBC to the community to engage in the curbside recycling. So we should see that roll out to us very shortly in terms of the conditions around that contract, what it means, and then to be able to understand that and the implications to us as a community as well as to the residents and homeowners. And I'll give it to Matt to see if he has anything to add to that.
Yeah, no, I think that summed it up quite well, Your Worship. I would like to add that we are hoping to go forward with public consultation on November 4th, and this will be spoken to a little bit later on today, hopefully. But no, it's great to have the mayor sit in that conversation with myself and Shelley Wolf.
Yeah.
So I took away from that conversation that we're actually a little bit further ahead than most of the community as well while looking at this, so I'm pretty excited to hear that.
Well,
Thank you.
I did see that, and I believe it's in the CFO's report, and perhaps I can elaborate on it later in the meeting about the consultations having to be moved up, but I suppose we can discuss that at a later time, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any further questions? Item 10, diary.
Nothing in this meeting for the diary, Your Worship.
Consent calendar. Strategic priorities?
Okay.
I think we've got that somewhere else.
Well, it says that 10-1.
It's always there.
And nothing new on the strategic priorities chart, Your Worship?
Thank you. Question and answer period?
Nobody signed up, Your Worship?
Media question period? Holy. If I wore you guys out.
Wore them out.
Committee of the Whole reports. Report from the staff sergeant?
I knew that.
Well, maybe if you move to Shorty, we'll go see if we can find the staff sergeant.
Thank you. Report from the fire chief, 15-2.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I didn't wear my pink shirt today. So you have the report in front of you. There's it was a fairly, I guess, average month, so to speak. Any questions?
I guess not.
Councillor Wilbur?
Just for the sake of having a question, where are we at with our new fire truck?
They just got the chassis in last Wednesday, I believe. So Hub Fire Engines now have the chassis, so it's going to take whatever that 6 to 8 months, whatever it is, for them to build the rest of it, and then we take delivery.
Mhm.
It's a long process.
Yes.
It is.
Very long
Yes.
process. So. One thing I want to mention is we just had our Fire Prevention Week, and you may have seen in the papers where we hooked up with the pizza delivery, or the pizza companies, and they supplied pizza with us. This is the 4th year doing this, and so what way it goes, if you order a pizza at random, your name might be drawn. We will deliver the pizza with our fire truck and firefighters. If you have a working smoke alarm, you get the pizza for free. If you don't have a working smoke alarm, you get a smoke alarm, but you got to pay for your pizza. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up, this is the 4th year we've done that. And in the first year, it was 75% of the people had no working smoke alarms and 25% of did. Now we're a complete reversal. 75% of the people we visited this year had working smoke alarms. So I'm hoping that the word is getting out there, and people are taking it with open arms. One lady, she had a $86 pizza order that she got for free, so she was very happy. So it gets us out in the community, and it's very well received. So.
Good job, thank you.
And all the pizzas and all the smoke alarms are donated.
I was going to say, maybe Councillor Kenny refrained from ordering pizza this year.
Well, it is kind of funny because the batteries died last week on our smoke alarms. Is there a plot or something? But we did get those batteries replaced right away.
Thanks for the idea. I said no, but thanks for the idea. But it's important that you check your smoke alarms. I have a 9-year-old son, and he comes home with his pamphlet and says, "We got to check it." I go, "No, don't worry about it. Ours all work. I know they work. We've got a new house." And so he insisted that we go check it, and lo and behold, we have 2 in our house, and one of them did not work. I had to replace it. So it's important that you do check it on a regular basis.
Thank you. Anything further? I want to add that there was a comment on one of the social media sites the other day of a real accolade to the guys at the fire hall, where a lady was out trying to get, I forget what it was, but she took her son in, and the guys were she just couldn't rave high enough about how good that the attendant guys were in terms of giving the boy a tour and helping him, and she just, it was just a really, really terrific comment. And so I wanted to pass that on to you, Chief, about how positive that is for our community.
Yeah,
So
I
thank
agree,
you.
and I'll pass it on.
Thank you. Anything further? Thank you. 15-1, we have the report from the staff sergeant. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've got quite a bit more good news. Actually, I was a couple of minutes late, but the guys wanted to they had pulled me aside. They really wanted me to let you guys know that they had solved the break and enter at the curling club, the same suspects that broke into the Legacy Market. So those were both quite destructive break and enters, young offenders, but those people are in custody, and I think we've got that one dealt with. So that was, kind of a high profile just based on the destructiveness and stuff like that. And there were a lot of people who were kind of impacted by that. So that was kind of a late breaking thing that happened over the weekend.
Pass on our appreciation.
No, I will, absolutely.
Thank you.
I will. And so I guess the first thing that I wanted to speak about, we had the good fortune of getting a guy with some service, and he's forensically trained, and he's got a few things like that. So that guy is bringing quite a bit of value, has already brought quite a bit of value. Actually, in attending the B&Es, he's got the ability to do some forensic work and that kind of thing. And so he was associated to our triumph with these break and enters, which is kind of a nice place to be in. And it we haven't historically had a lot of lateral interest in transferring here, and we're starting to see some. I think that's an indication that the community's heading in the right direction, and probably that the police station's heading in the right direction as well. So we're pleased about that. The other thing is that we didn't lose very many people this year, which is another sort of indication that I think things are on the right track. We have in the past had not a stampede for the door, but I think you know what I mean. And didn't really have anybody that was very interested in leaving. And so we're sort of conserving the seniority within our investigators, and that's nice because it gives us a much greater kind of pool of experience to draw from in terms of solving these crimes. So that's a positive thing as well. We've spent quite a lot of your money on training for our guys and for our staff as well, and so that's seems to be paying off. And I guess that kind of leads me to the stats, which are on the next page, and some of them thankfully are 0 and 0, but if you look at the difference between our September 2012 stats and our September 2013 stats, which are fairly comparable stats in terms of call volume, there is a much lower number of break and enters, for example, from 25 down to 10, theft from 23 down to 10, theft of vehicles from 13 down to 3, mischief from 35 down to 15, drug possession from 14 down to 6, and so on. And so part of that is because our guys have really aggressively been pursuing the prolific offenders, the people that cause the biggest problems in the community, who they've had some investigative successes against those people, which have resulted in court-ordered release conditions or release conditions imposed by us on bail. And so we've been able to monitor those people, breach them on occasion, and put them in jail if they're not complying. So that's resulted, that approach, along with a few other things, some of which might be demographic and not related to our awesomeness, but at any rate, we're fairly happy with the direction that's headed in. So that's good. And
That final thing.
pardon me?
I've got final thing.
So one of our other things we've had like an incredible amount of success, almost to the point of touching wood, in terms of our success with major events that we've had. As you're all aware, we had a number of robberies with a firearm, many of which were solved by the citizens of Dawson Creek, but at any rate, and a few fairly violent sexual assaults. But those events are all solved with offenders in custody and before they had an opportunity to reoffend. And that has been, I think, as a result of some of the investment that we've had in training and the tremendously hard work that was done by the members of the Watch, who really took it personally that something like this happened in our community and went out and in one particular incident, and this is the most recent sexual assault, they went, and there was some indication that person was associated to a particular type of business, and so they went out and they canvassed all of these businesses. They then ended up through a court order, being successful in developing some photographic images of our offender, and they then went and they did all of those inquiries again with the photo. So I mean, a lot of places maybe it would have ended there, and in this particular case, they kept going, put in several days carrying on with that, and it resulted in the identification and arrest and confession of that person for that offense. So that was a pretty big deal, and we were quite concerned that if we hadn't been successful in identifying that person, that of course it puts the community at risk of a reoffending, type thing. So that was quite a good feeling. So I think that's really the bulk of the news I have for you right now. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Oh, I think he needs to read out that last
I think so. I agree.
I would rather he did not.
That was just a command performance. That's really very similar to the sorts of things I wrote when I was in grade 11 trying to pass English. So that's.
I do recall the conversation.
I thought it was great, Charlie.
Well, I was going to ask the question, I mean, you conclude your report with these lines: upon rereading it, I have determined that perhaps a career in law enforcement remains the most viable way to put bread on my table.
That's great.
And I was going to say to you, don't be so discouraged.
That's what my mom used to say.
Based on your first effort a month ago, I thought there was hope. This is a little lacking, I agree.
It's lackluster.
But if Councillor Schumann likes it, I would suggest that you should try again.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best next month, and you can let me know. If
I must say, I had to write something, Milo, up for this show, right? And I must admit, I don't tend to be too competitive, you know what I mean? But I thought, if Milo can do it, I can do it. And so you'll read in this thing, which is drawn to Vancouver and a lot of places. This is written in dedication to Staff Sergeant Milo MacDonald. No, I'm lying. But you're certainly the inspiration. I'm going to pay attention to this and see if I can match Milo's. So Cheryl has said that this is good. So
This is good stuff.
I agreed with your assessment.
You're totally safe until he gets his teacher's red pen out.
I thought it was solid B-.
Any further questions or comments?
Well, it's good to hear of all the success that's
Thank you.
going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the efforts on behalf of council and citizens, and the statistics absolutely are encouraging when you see the transition of some of the crime.
There will be a reversal on some of those when those people get back out of jail, but we'll certainly.
Wrap up again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I know who they are.
So we're at noon, and we have about 4 items before we move to close, and I don't want to hold the department heads up from lunchtime. So what's your preference? You want to carry on?
Power through.
Corporate Administration 15-3.
I can take a hint, I'll keep it very brief. Just wanted to start off by saying I was at the Clerks and Corporate Officers Forum last week. It's a meeting of all the people that do the type of jobs that Brenda and I do across the province, so it's always really informative, touching on the items that may not be exciting to others, but are very important to us on our daily basis. So thank you for sending me there. Other thing, just to touch on from the report, our department does assist with the public procurement processes. And as Shorty was talking about the fire truck, I'm working on a procurement for his SCUBA, as I call it, self-contained breathing apparatus. There's always a rush of tenders that happen after the budget's adopted to get all our documents out, and so unfortunately Shorty has fallen to near the end of the pile again, and also most of the equipment that he has is built only once it's ordered, so there's like a huge lead time for that. So that's one of the ones coming, and then one of the only other ones I know of till the end of the year is the insurance requirements tender. You may have noticed downstairs, it's Healthy Workplace Month, so one of the events that's going on is decorating for Halloween, so great job. I was really happy when I came into the office this morning to see how scary it looked. And I'm glad to see that people are engaging in that and getting involved. There's a few other events before the end of the month that are going to take place within the workplace and amongst all the other different city facilities as well. So thanks to staff for participating, and thanks for Community Services Department for organizing a lot of that. At the Corporate Officer Conference, there was a session on elections, so just touching on that a little bit, there are some proposed legislative changes for the 2014 election. They're not in stone yet. I read the white paper on the plane on my way there. It's a 110-page document, but the plane was cold, so I managed to get through it. And there is a response period that ends October 23rd. Spoke to one of the women at the conference who's on the review committee of that, and she said they've been plugging through it and trying to provide their feedback before it actually gets written into law. And then I'm sure next spring, as we start planning for our elections, there will be training sessions as well. The basic change is a increased role for Elections BC, primarily around campaign financing. So that will be of interest to any of you who choose to rerun, or any members of the public who are thinking about running, and we'll try and get that information out as soon as possible, as soon as we have it, and the changes that are happening there. Also, sort of on a department basis, the council procedure amendment request that you asked for last time.
Oh, yeah.
Brenda reviewed it and confirmed her belief that the council in-camera session of the meeting is a part of the regular meeting. So just like you would glaze over question and answer period, if there aren't any, you can just go to the next item. You can do that for a closed meeting as well, for the closed portion of the meeting. So we do not require a bylaw amendment, a council procedure bylaw amendment, to allow you to do that. We'll just change our practice of holding minutes. If the only thing is minutes, then we won't schedule a meeting until there's something else to be discussed. So
Good.
that's what all I have, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Tyra. Any questions?
Yes,
Charlie?
it may seem premature, and I'm just flagging it, but I very much appreciate knowing the schedule for the next 2014 elections, dates and that stuff, because I'm beginning to get requests to do things elsewhere, and I'd like to be able to say yes and no.
The election date has been set for November 15th.
Okay.
I'm not sure what other, so the nomination
then
period will be
the
39 days
actual-
before that.
Yeah, if you just
Yeah,
put
we
all
would set
those-
our timeline.
Those preliminary things,
Mhm.
November the 15th.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyra. Any further questions? Report from CFO?
Through your worship, Shelley had to go for meetings with someone that I cannot confirm or deny she's having meetings with because of the confidentiality agreement you guys signed. So I can take a stab at answering any questions you might have on her report.
Any questions? Duncan?
Just the-
Councillor Malkinson, sorry.
MMBC bit there. I see that, yes, curbside recycling update. Public consultation date has now been set for November 4th in the upper lobby of the Encana Center. I'm just curious about what's moved that ahead. I believe that is an advancement, isn't it? And I can ask Shelley for my own.
We were looking at the 4th all along, weren't
Yeah, I
Oh.
think we might actually be a little bit behind schedule, but
Okay.
just because this MMBC is actually confused things a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. That was a different impression than I was under. I apologize.
Any further questions? Thank you. Director of Infrastructure and Sustainable Development. Morning.
Good morning. Couple of reports. Draw council's attention to the building permit report. That's always the good one to start with, because it's always good news. 2013 to date, we are at $45 million in change, which is up considerably over 2012 numbers. So we're doing well again. So no slowdowns. I suspect we'll see, probably October here will be a bit of a push. Everybody realizes winter is coming, even though it is beautiful out there. And be lots of people starting to try and get going before winter hits us. So.
Pretty much all taxable assessment in those building permits?
Yeah, we only had $96,000 exempt.
Wow.
So that's really nice. Where in years past, sometimes we had, some bigger exempt numbers. So yeah.
Thank you.
So that's great. It's great to see. Quickly on the other report, in the engineering side of things, we anxiously await our paving contractor to come to town and complete their work. Last I heard, which was this morning, is that they're going to have a crew here tomorrow to do some base work, level course, and then hopefully following day or two they would be doing top lift on some of these roads that they've tore up. So I hate to make these type of predictions because I've been told tomorrow a number of times, so I'll leave it at that. But we have been very lucky with the weather, so there is still an opportunity, and the weather looks good this week. So. One thing that was in the report, and I'm not sure if council was aware, we did have a water leak up on 17th Street, about 87th Avenue there. I believe that was last week or just the week before. We did have some disruption up there, and we had to close the street for a number of days while we dug that up. And it was quite interesting. What we found is that we knew there was a main line there. That was no issue, but what we found was leaking is there was actually a pipe that came off that and headed to the west that we had no record of, and that's actually what was leaking. And it was, I believe it's probably something left over from the Army days, because I believe there was a camp up in that Crescent Park area back during that time frame. So anyways, the things you know and the things you don't know. Wanted to touch quickly on the water treatment plant. We did have a gentleman and his wife up last week who was looking at a position at the water treatment plant, so that's good news. And we're hopeful that that'll work out. He was very interested in the position. He's currently in Comox, and it's always interesting to see what people's first impressions are of the community. And this isn't the first time I've heard this, but his first words to me that he said it was a beautiful, beautiful community, beautiful area, and the people were very friendly. So that's always nice to hear when people come to town. So we're hoping that that opportunity works out, and this gentleman may take a position there. And I think I'll just lastly leave with, as council is aware, we have Boulevard Transportation Group in this afternoon to present the draft master transportation plan. And we'll be having an open house this evening at the Energy House from 7 till 9. So encourage everybody to attend. Any questions?
Councillor McFadden?
Just a quick, Kevin, from the water stats, Kevin. It's I'm reading here, reclaim use of the Shell water was 0. And then above that, bulk water sales commercial was 10,000 cubes. So does that mean that folks are still using potable water and not the reclaimed water for fracking?
Yeah, what you'll see there is that the reclaimed shell or used shell, that's specifically their use through the pipeline. They were not taking any water.
Okay.
Just below that, you'll see the truck fills at the reclaim, and there's 11,900. So actually, it was not a bad month for us there. And to answer your question, yes, there still is potable water use where you noted.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, we had an extra 3,400 cubes.
I don't actually have a question. I just wanted to pass on thank yous from the mothers who drive cars and take their children to dance at K-PAC, that the parking lot was gotten onto and potholes fixed. So they're very happy and business as usual. So please pass that on.
I will.
Gentlemen, good job.
Thank you.
311 people, just give us a call.
They did it. It got done. It's wonderful.
Anything further for Kevin?
I just think that people keep hearing it. I'd be remiss to say that a big topic of discussion at MOPS, Mile Zero Part Society, again, was the RV sewage thing, and I just keep saying Kevin has it in hand.
I have it in our budget proposal for 2014.
Proposal,
Yes.
right, yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
15.6, report from the Director of Community Services. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm going to bring Duncan in with me because I was away last week, and I think we want to talk about something together. together. Just before I start,
You're gonna deliver all the good news, and then Duncan gets to tell about all the bad things that happened while you were away.
I'll share.
And I'll just excuse myself while
No,
Duncan
excuse-
talks.
Just Kevin, if you could maybe as well, Kevin, I'm not sure if you updated on the airport.
No, I never did that.
Just-
I could give a briefing on
We'll do just a quick, because that's a positive as well. All the airport completion is now done, and we've signed off on that work that was completed for the obstacle work in place, and Kevin and I have had a chance to work with some discussion with staff, and I think Kevin from the watershed side and the ditching, I think a very positive, you always have to take good news out of the bad, and when I talked to Connie the other day is they want to get together with us and work with that, and one of the positive things is the water was the critical issue and how that flowed through there. So Kevin, maybe just a brief update.
Yeah, just on that ditch that is now exposed due to the tree removals. We found through actually a hydrology study that the Ministry of Transportation undertook with their 4-laning, that there's some bottlenecks through that drainage course. And so we've got a bit of an opportunity now with those trees gone, and staff will be putting something together for the 2014 capital budget to do some work in there, which I think will address some of the issues Barry brought up, and hopefully protect the fairgrounds a little better when we get those rains, and also maybe reduce city flooding hazards.
Thank you.
Okay, and to date with that, the only group that has indicated so far, but we will be in contact with the other users down there to be part of the process of ensuring and seeing some of the work that David will pull together on the beautification side of that as well, and we'll be bringing capital report forward for council's review as we move forward into 2014 as well. I think we'll just do the reverse and maybe get to the one key thing we wanted to talk about with media still here. With our construction at the pool, we had a bit of a challenge last week with the filling of the pool, and press releases will be finalized this morning, or once we get a chance to speak with Jim on the updates of that. The contractor's been pulled back, and we had some warranty work issues with the caulking of the pool once it was filled. Always a concern. I will start off by saying our staff did a great job in identifying that, and they're never easy. Anytime you get into such a large basin, one of the infrastructure challenges that I've always looked at as a pool, working with pools, is that when you get into that many tiles and that amount of caulking, is that it just creates that challenge. So Duncan's going to give a very brief update on that, and then we'll get the information out to the media, and Duncan and I will take all media information and push forward the council's information for you.
Okay, so to build off what Barry's already said, so it was originally picked up through visual inspection after the pool was filled up that some of the grout in between the tiles was missing. We had to dechlorinize the water because we couldn't introduce it into the city system without dechlorinizing it first, which took a period of time. We got it drained over the weekend. I actually got an opportunity to go into the pool and take a look at this. So it's not as bad as originally anticipated. A lot of the areas are discolored and aren't missing the grout. They have a black, it's a black appearance coming through from the original grout that's in there, so it wasn't removed properly the first time. But to fix one spot and to fix 10 spots, the only difference is the amount of time it takes to fix it. The curing of the grout is the same, the filling the pool is the same, and the chlorinizing and salting the water is the same process. So the only difference is that the contractor's not going to spend as much time fixing the problem. There were areas identified where grout had come out upon filling it, and we're working through that. Contractor arrived yesterday, started at 7 a.m. and will be completed by Wednesday. That's the report we got this morning, and staff have been there to help him along, and we've identified the areas where it's come out before he got there, and they'll be grinding some sections and regrouting. Goes through a period of time, again, as mentioned in the previous information given out to council. The original date of opening was supposed to be a week from today, and it's looking like that particular pool will not be open till the 12th. We're hoping to have it before November 12th, but that is the timeline right now. And staff are proposing that we move forward with the leisure pool. It's the lap pool that's having the issue. Opening the leisure pool at this time, opening the walking track and the climbing wall, and getting all the other amenities opened. And staff would also like to propose a 50% reduction in fees until the pool is up and running. Ask council to consider that when we go back to the regular meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, that's the update. If questions, we can take them all together at the end. Some highlights in the new policy, we're looking at ice allocation and some of the ice that's been given back through the process. There's, before you, I think it's in the bylaw, I think, Duncan, is that where the fees and charges bylaw, I think you've approved? Did you get that far yet? Yes? Okay, so that will allow us to work with user groups specifically around recreational activity, increase recreational activity at a price that I think is very affordable. A key thing around staffing, one of the challenges in the north has always been the requirements of that staff level and the standardization of that. Through risk management assessment deficiencies, once we complete some of that work there, it'll allow us to cut back on the Class 5 power engineering certification. I can tell you that we're probably more than qualified to operate our facilities with the amount of certification and staff we have there, but it's always the filling of that 5th, 6th, 7th sort of staff member, and this is going to give us a lot more flexibility in ensuring the infrastructure is protected, but lessening on some of the standards based on how we protect our liability. The second annual Encana Jamboree is coming up here. Sammy Joe is in town, and they'll probably, any counselor wants to come down this weekend and see that opportunity. And the last notice was we're up to 60 females participating in that,
Wow.
Which I think is very awesome. We're going to take opportunity with our community services to do a potluck dinner with Sammy Joe in the department at 4:30 on Friday. So again, if any counselors want to stop by, guaranteed you don't have to bring anything. The last potluck we did a couple weeks ago, we had more than enough food. Come down and say hello to Sammy Joe or try and catch up with her at the rink. We're going to maximize this out on the female growth of the game. We ended up at our World's Girls' Day of having 29 girls, 15 females that had never been on the ice before. And that is a huge step forward from legacy building, and to be quite excited about that. Pre-sales of the Montreal Canadian, they sold 150 tickets, which I was quite surprised that quick, that early, and I think that's moving towards a very successful event. It's basically shutdown time for parks. Just David was able to stay with us a little later, and appreciate the fact that he had to get a taste of that side of governance he doesn't get to do, and appreciate that opportunity. They've done a great job in wrapping stuff up. David's got a lot on his plate to bring forward to council with Crescent Park and the airport, as well as some more beautification updates for you as well. A couple other things to highlight. The leisure access policy that council approved us to do, that goes into our first intake coming up. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we move that forward in partnerships within the community. And Tyra talked a little bit about, but I wanted to plug as well, the Healthy Workplace Month is in partnership with the work that Tyra does. And Erin has done a great job in motivating us as staff to rethink our ways around wellness and health and safety in the workplace and starting to take care of ourselves. So a lot of stuff on the go, and we'll see if we can get out of council here long enough to see if we can even carve a pumpkin upstairs. It looks like we've got a long way to go to compete downstairs.
Do you need a pumpkin? I have several.
Yeah, well, I'll have to see if it's a big pumpkin, yes. I wanted to also highlight some of the work that Matt did. I think we're getting more than the original intent of mileage out of Matt, but he put together a workshop that looked at efficiency measures within our municipality infrastructure, specifically, Matt, I think it was around the arena stuff.
Yeah.
Did you want to comment just briefly, Matt, I think, if you could?
Certainly, yeah. So this lined up well with our green building policy, which was fantastic. And what it was an opportunity for our facility operators to get together. And we had Art Sutherland from Accent Refrigeration come up from the Lower Mainland, and he delivered a one-day workshop on some of the operational efficiencies that you can achieve around our various arenas. And I thought it was really well received. We tried to open it up to other municipalities in the region, and we had a member from Mackenzie show up, and we also had somebody from Chetwynd who was scheduled with them, but they couldn't make it last minute. So I think with any luck, we'd like to see that happen again, and potentially we'll try to schedule it at a time of year when more operators will be able to make it from the surrounding area to increase that knowledge sharing. But it was really well received overall.
Okay, that's basically the overall report. If there's any questions specific around the pool, we can take them now.
Councillor Parslow?
You reference, oh, he's snuck out, is he there?
Oh, yes.
Kevin. I mean, this may sound a silly question, but, you reference to the airport and the work there, exposed the stadium, the grandstand. But the question came up about the building of the grandstand. That was fully approved through your department. Yes.
When the
I
grandstand
said I
was
thought
built,
it was. Just wanted to reaffirm that.
They
'cause-
came to us, they got a building permit, and they also provided us with a survey from Tryon Land Survey to verify the heights, which was then compared to the I call it the flight path, but I can't remember the exact word, but the
Yeah,
ceiling
sure.
above.
I remember there was an issue about that.
Yes, it was.
Good.
It was all engineered
Yeah.
to the size of the structure.
Thank you. Any?
Yeah, just another.
Sure.
I'm delighted, Harry, about your work with supporting female hockey. Just as feedback, I was party to some discussions between some of the participants, and they're just really excited about that, and they can play in their own league. You know what I mean? Not league, but their own competition. So that's a really good step forward, I think, for the community. Good.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Jim?
Through your worship, because this falls under Barry's department, just to update council, there were just short of 5,200 patrons in the Canada Event Center last night for Laurel Lynn. And we certainly found that the new handrails that council approved as a capital project were definitely in play. It was a mobility challenge crowd, and there was one minor slip and fall. It did require a trip to the hospital, turned out to be a sprained ankle. Otherwise, good. The crowd didn't drink like some crowds do, but they sure bought merchandise. They bought T-shirts and to beat the band. And it seemed that the artists certainly enjoyed themselves, and it appeared as though the crowd did as well.
Good
Are
deal.
you saying that I'm mobility challenged?
And I was texting
I was gonna say, I
them
didn't
last
think
night
anyone saw
asking
me
them how it was
fall.
going. They said there were no fights in the mosh pit.
No fights in the mosh pit at all.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I take it for granted. We had,
That's of course, that is the largest number of painting patrons we've ever had in the building for one show, and it's the largest we ever will have.
yeah.
Amazing.
We won't again have an artist whose stage requirements were as minimal as Loretta Lynn, so we won't be able to put as many seats in for any other event.
But good job, guys.
Something,
Yeah.
something
Loretta
to be
Lynn.
said though about
Would that
Loretta
be
Lynn
Mr. McCann?
signing as many things as she did. It was amazing the amount of autographs that woman signed
would've stayed
for
forever,
merchandise
actually.
to, yeah, it was amazing.
That's wonderful.
I loved it.
Well,
Anything else?
I drove back from Fort St. John last night and was hit by this continuous stream of vehicles, and I was wondering, a little slow, what was happening. But just coincidentally, there was a wonderful maritime fiddler, Ashley McKaiser had a show, and so I wasn't at the concert, but for the first time in my life, I heard Loretta Lynn sing, because he had chosen something of her, so I now know who Loretta Lynn
I was
is from the point of view of her sound. I don't think I've ever seen any pictures of that. But I'm wondering if Duncan made a mention of a motion needed from council. Are you going to deal with that?
Yeah, you'll need to come out of committee of the whole
yeah.
and back to your regular meeting before you do that.
Okay, so just a final wrap up to that, if council's okay with the direction update that Jim has provided in our recent, we'll release the press release, and we will start our media scrums as we leave the building. Appreciate that from council.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. So that's that. We recess to our closed. Sorry, Tyra?
Just to be a stickler, wanting to make sure that the item referred, item 7.3 that's referred, is included in the motion to go into closed.
Yes.
It will be item 7.4 on the closed, and the reason is Community Charter Section 91J.
And just before you recess there, someone might want to make a motion that you waive your fees and charges policy, provide 50% reduction the Ken Warwick
For
Aquatic
Duncan.
Center for the period of time that we don't have the full facility available to the public.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Schumann, seconded by Councillor Malkinson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
We didn't move to adjourn or recess to the closed. We'll be able to find two names.
Moved by Councillor Wilbur, seconded by Councillor Malkinson. The recess is closed.
Awesome.